Patrick takes the snap, drops back, lobs it back right corner. Decker! He's got it! Touchdown! Eric Decker scores! And the Jets have won it in overtime!
This is the Jet Take with Ben Blessington and Kyle Fahey.
Welcome back to another episode of the Jet Take. I'm one of your hosts, Ben Blessington. As always, with me is my special co-host, Kyle Fahey. Kyle, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. My neck's in better shape than a professional football player. So.
All right, and I guess we'll hop into the news in just a second. And then again, we have a little special show tonight. Not only is Kyle Fahey joining me, but we have double Kyles tonight. Kyle Smith from AFC East at AFC East Bros. Kyle Smith, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Doing even better now that I'm talking to you guys.
we get to talk some Jets.
Don't lie.
For 2 hours for a 2-14 team. Kyle alluded to it earlier. By the way, to avoid confusion, I guess I'll call you Kyle Fahey and Kyle Smith, so Smith and Fahey. But Fahey alluded to it earlier. Quincy Enunwa out for the year. That's probably the big news with a neck injury. Fahey, I'll go to you first. Instant reaction. What are your thoughts, and what does this mean for the 2017 season?
Obviously a bad break. Wow. Obviously a bad break for Quincy. We were hoping, this is the year for him to stand out, finally take the number one, get all the, the throws his direction. Fortunately, that's not going to happen. We don't know his future with the team, considering his contract situation. I believe he is a restricted free agent next year, but still, just the scenario. It's just a bad break for him, pun intended. But, it also happens to be good for a guy like Robbie Anderson, who gets to come up and, possibly be the number one for this team. And then guys who, we've talked about, including Kyle Smith, Sharon Peak could possibly step up, maybe stop dropping the ball. Ardarius Stewart, I'm a big fan of his, cooking the stew in the pot. Chad Hansen, Eric Decker 2.0. I mean, we have some guys available to step up and fill the role. Just got to do it in bulk, basically.
Yeah, and we'll go to you, Kyle Smith, next. Your instant reaction to Quincy Enunwa's injury.
It's really unfortunate because he's irreplaceable. I mean, as much as I like Robbie Anderson and was, on his hype train from day one last year, Robbie Anderson is not Quincy Enunwa, and he will never be Quincy Enunwa. Quincy Enunwa, he does many things for an offense. He's not just a guy that you can hope will mold into a true number one receiver, which he does have that type of ability. But he's also a guy that you can throw him into an H-back role, and he can block the crap out of people. He's a guy that can get you yak. He's a guy that can go up and high point the football. He's a guy who can take the top off the defense because he's got deep, long speed. I mean, he's a do-it-all type of guy. Not only that, but he's got leadership type of qualities. When you see a guy running with that linebacker type of mentality, running through linebackers, running through defensive backs, that gives that hypes up your teammates. Look back to one of Quincy's best games last year when we played the Patriots. Malcolm Butler, Pro Bowl cornerback. Malcolm Butler's a big trash talker, but if you look at when Quincy kept beating Butler was looking at Quincy and kind of like, nodding his head in respect. And to get a guy like that who's a big trash talker to nod in respect to you, that says a lot about what he's doing on the field. So it's not only just the physical things that he can do, but when you play like that and when you have the leadership type of qualities that he does have, he's a very well-spoken guy. Go and listen to, Let's Talk Jets interview with him. It was one of the best player interviews I've ever heard. You guys really need to get him on the show if you're doing player interviews. Although it'll probably be hard to do that now.
Whoa.
He's irreplaceable.
Hey, we've been in contact. Okay,
I didn't know. But listen, I got to ask my buddy Miguel at Pat's Cap, the guy who knows the salary cap and he knows the CBA like the back of his hand. Quincy Enunwa will be an unrestricted free agent next year as far as I can tell. But
I'm pretty sure he's restricted.
Yeah, I thought it was restricted.
But it might be restricted because he's not getting an accrued season this year because he's not playing in 3 games because he's hurt. Like, if he played in 3 games and then had a season-ending injury, maybe then he would be an unrestricted free agent. I'm not totally sure how that works. But,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know for sure. I guess
we'll contact Miguel.
Yeah, Fahey can go fact check that, but I'm pretty sure he's a restricted free agent. But yeah, I mean, I was at that Patriots game you mentioned. I mean, Quincy Enunwa is a beast. I think he struggled last year sometimes. I mean, you can attribute to Part of it this to the quarterbacks, part of it to not getting it thrown at, not getting as many targets as maybe he should deserve. But he was definitely a guy that I was looking to take the next step. He took a huge leap from obviously 2014 to 2015, then 2015 to 2016, and I thought this year was going to be the year where he was going to actually develop himself as the number one wide receiver. Last year he showed flashes of it, but yeah, I mean, he would disappear for games. Where was he during that Steelers game or the Cardinals game, or there are games there where he disappeared. And again, you can attribute some of that to the the play calling or the quarterbacks. But I was really looking forward to seeing him develop into that number one wide receiver, and then we can develop the rest of the that would be a huge for whoever's under center, whether that's Christian Hackenberg, Bryce Petty, or I don't think Josh McCown's developing anymore at 38, but he's at least a nice target. To lose him for you, that's a huge blow. We're going to keep talking about this in just a second, and we're going to go into some other Jets training camp topics. But really quickly, before we do, we didn't do the plugs at the beginning. We introduced Kyle Smith. We got rolling with the breaking news. And now we'll do our plugs, our shameless plugs. Again, you can follow this show on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, just at The Jet Take, as well as to listen to the podcast, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play. We're all over the place. If you want to catch the podcast, listen to it there. We have a blog page. It's www.thejettake.libsyn.com. That has all our episodes as well as a few articles from Kyle Fahey. And then Kyle, as the aforementioned Kyle Fahey, I believe you have a plug of your own to plug in for our good friends over at Play Like a Jet.
Yeah, I'm a sellout. We're sellouts. Don't forget to check out Play Like a Jet. It's your weekly look back in Jets history. This week featuring the story of former Hofstra safety Doug Shanahan, how he tried to survive training camp and make the roster all the way back in 2002. Ben, you and I were just youngins. Hear about all the Jets legends he grew up being a mentor for, what it was like playing in the college for a beloved former Jets assistant, what he did with former Jets coach Herm Edwards, that may have changed his life forever. Find out on Friday, Play Like a Jet at iTunes, or turn on thejets.com and anywhere else you can download podcasts.
Jeez, 2002. I would have been 2 years old. Kyle Smith, what were you doing in 2002?
Yeah.
2002, I think I was in 7th grade.
I forget how young you are sometimes, Kyle. You're not that, you're within a 10-year gap of us, right?
Yeah. I'm really not that much older than you guys. But you know what? I just turned 28 this year, and I'm thinking
Well, that's not a 10-year gap. That's all right.
11
well,
or 12.
whatever. I mean, I guess I started school a little later than you guys.
Yeah, well, you're in your prime right now, Kyle Smith. 2 years, you hit 30. I don't know. That's kind of the bad number.
Big 3-0.
I got to cash in right now. I'm in the prime. Got to get that big contract now while I still can.
Yeah, last big contract of Kyle Smith's career.
Yeah.
And the other two plugs we have, and then we'll continue with some Jets topics. Jets tickets. You can get some really cheap Jets tickets. First on Seat Giant, that has pretty much every game, or does have every game. They're already very, very cheap tickets, preseason tickets, Jets home and away tickets. But then if you use our discount code, the Jet Take, you get an even better discount. Some of the cheapest tickets you can find around. And then if you want official New York Jets tickets, we have tickets to 3 games this year, the home opener against the Dolphins, the game against the Jaguars, and the game against the Falcons. If you're interested in going to any of those games and you want official New York Jets tickets, we've been working with the Jets to bring you guys this. Enter our promo code. Again, you'll get a discount on it. Nice seats, and it'll be a nice discount. So two great places to get Jets tickets, and as well as Kyle Fahey mentioned, a nice podcast besides ours to listen to on Friday. And we have some other big news, but I guess we'll wait on those announcements. Just know big things are coming for this show. All right, guys.
You know what I love about CJ, though? You know what I really love about them? The view they give you on the tickets. I was checking it out. Thinking about going to the first preseason game, maybe taking a flight. Trying to do a trip to New York.
For a preseason game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm planning on a trip to New York anyway, and school's almost here. I mean, Kyle, come on, calm yourself.
Preseason. You have one preseason game until school starts. They're $5. Why would you get a...
Guys, I mean...
But you're going to fly on a plane to watch preseason?
Kyle Smith was giving me crap for buying LeBron James jersey.
Can you let me do the plug?
No, you're a sellout.
And meanwhile, we're talking about raising a GoFundMe to get you an airplane ticket to Gary's wedding.
Jeez, just
but you take a
private plane.
You can't let me do a plug
to watch a preseason game.
You
no
just ruined
problem.
the plug. You ruined
that was such crap to go see a preseason game. No, yes. If you want to see your view of your ticket, you can go to the Seat Giant app, and it'll show you a 3D image of where exactly you're sitting. All right, guys, let's continue with football. We'll come back to the Quincy Enunwa news just to see Just that's probably the biggest story facing the Jets right now. I guess we'll switch to the linebacker position. Kyle Smith, I know you're not a huge fan of the next player I'm about to mention, but Darren Lee, undersized. It's Darren Lee, Kyle. Kyle just refuses to pronounce his name.
I'm going to take it to the grave.
Until he's a solid player. Darren Lee, Kyle Smith, I want to get your thoughts on him. He's supposedly gained 10-plus pounds. He looks a little bigger.
We've learned from linebackers gaining 10 pounds with the Jets. I mean, come on, guys.
I will say, you look at Darren Lee, obviously the athleticism and the physical traits are not his problems. You could argue, yes, he's undersized, but that smaller, hybrid, faster linebacker is now the newer linebacker of today's NFL. What seemed his biggest problem is the game was moving way too fast for him. You saw times during pass coverage. he just couldn't pick a side. He was just hitting the divider on a freeway because he couldn't figure out to cover this guy, and then against the run he was over pursuing and whatnot. But he says the game is slowing down for him. And granted, he hasn't played a game this season yet. But gained the 10 pounds, looks a little bigger. Switched numbers to 58, might look a little bigger, and he says the game's slowing down. Smith, I'll start with you. What are your expectations for Darren Lee this year?
I'm not expecting too much. And you said I'm not a fan of him, I'm a hater or something. I actually kind of liked when we picked Darren Lee at pick 20, but I didn't like immediately upon when the Jets, announced that they picked him. They said we're going to put him. The plan is to play him at inside linebacker. And it's like, what? It's like every draft scout out there said this guy is more suited as a weak offside linebacker, hybrid safety type of guy. He's not a guy that you want to plug on the inside to take on pulling guards and to take on fullbacks coming at him with a full head of steam. He just never was that type of player. You look at all his big time plays that he made at Ohio State. He was not taking on a guy head up with his shoulder, blowing him up and then making the tackle. No, he's a guy that can kind of shoot the gap with his elite speed for the linebacker position and then make the tackle. So to put him at inside linebacker, I hated the decision from the first day. And then we saw it last year. He wasn't that good. Now, I don't know if it was a matter of him hitting a rookie wall or whatever, and he's saying the game slowed down for him. But honestly, to me, he kind of played a little bit better in the beginning of the season than he did later in the season. You look at one of those December games against the 49ers, the worst game I've ever seen him play. I tweeted out, probably 5-6 video clips of him just totally not knowing where he's supposed to be in zone coverage, getting blown up in the run game. And the thing is hopefully the game is slowing down for him. Hopefully him putting on that extra weight will help him. But, if you watch him on the inside as a linebacker that's responsible for two gaps, he has to read his keys. Now, Lee was never known as a processor, as a smart type of linebacker that can be able to distinguish that. So he didn't know where he was going. He was second-guessing himself. And the fact that he's not that big, by the time he actually took on whoever was blocking him, he would just get washed right out of the hole. So hopefully him knowing the game a little bit more now, he can react a little bit quicker because that's when he's at his best, when he can just see it and go. So hopefully that'll help him out a little bit. And obviously the 10 extra pounds is going to help him. But the question is okay, you're adding 10 pounds. Do you lose your speed now? Do you lose the one thing that kind of made you good in your rookie year? So that's the big question that we're going to have to see this year.
Yeah, he's very different from a linebacker like David Harris. Darren Lee's, from a purely physical standpoint, should not be the type of linebacker that gets burned on the wheel routes. He's fast enough to keep up with running backs and tight ends and receivers. He is a very physically gifted linebacker. The problem is, again, as you said, he is at his best when he's just playing. I think he made a few plays in that first Buffalo Bills game that I remember just watching and being like, wow, this guy looks like he's going to be the real deal. Whereas, David Harris,
Stephen Hill
didn't. Yeah, I guess Stephen Hill also had a big game against the Bills. But you look at David Harris. He's not a guy who's physically elite, I guess. Not a super fast guy, but he was a very smart linebacker. So he might miss plays like the wheel routes and plays that were demand physically of him. But what made him a good linebacker during his prime was his smarts. I guess Darren Lee, if the game can slow down for him and he can just play like you mentioned, and just run around and use that speed. And again, hopefully the added weight doesn't hurt him like it did Lorenzo Mauldin. I think it's a little different though because Lorenzo Mauldin is an outside linebacker purely trying to rush the passer. Darren Lee's an inside linebacker, and I don't know. I hope it doesn't have the same impact. I was very against Lorenzo Mauldin gaining 10 pounds, and Kyle Smith, I seem to remember you also being against it. But I don't think Darren Lee will have the same impact, or the weight gain on Darren Lee will have the same impact. Mr. Fahey, your take on and expectations for Darren Lee this season?
Yeah, I'm hoping brains over bulk. I mean, what I've seen continuously from this guy is just running through the wrong gap, just making the wrong play and getting bailed out by his speed. If he runs through the wrong gap, he can go and basically run himself to the right direction. If you want to be an inside linebacker or starting Mike linebacker in this league, which I don't think he's capable of, he needs to get smarter. He has the physical traits. I'm not really worried about him, taking a hit because I think he's proven he can do it. But I like him to put on a little more muscle, yeah. But I think I'm more concerned about his brain, and we need to see it on the field. I think we'll see it on Saturday. I expect him to get a good amount of reps. I think he's earned absolutely nothing in this league, so I expect to see him a lot out there.
And Fahey, to your point about his brains, I mean, are we really confident that he is that guy to put in the work in the film room so that it becomes second nature, that he can just know where he's going to go, that he can read his keys and his flows and just attack the right gap? Because look at his Twitter behavior. Look at the stupid asinine things that he said on Twitter. And then his mom has to go and defend him and say, you still got to baby your kids or whatever.
Me and his mom and I got in a fight, I remember, do you remember that?
Jerron Lee won't go about his contract. He won't go on the show because of his mom. And Ben was like, "Oh, I don't think that's the standard for the contract." And then she
I said something like,
something stupid. You pulled a
No. I said that. No, I didn't. I said there's a ballpark. Somebody asked us why isn't Darren Lee signed yet, and I said, yes, you shouldn't worry about it. There's a ballpark where rookies are gonna. It wasn't like an asinine statement. It was a pretty generic statement. It was just there's a ballpark he's going to land in. It's not like he's going to break the bank, and it's not like he's going to there's not much to hold out for, I'm pretty sure what I said. And his mom was like, that's not true. I mean, there's plenty. And then, she was kind of right because Joey Bosa held out. So I was a little wrong there, but I basically just said, don't worry, there's not much to hold out for.
She was. They were holding out for. He wanted a fully guaranteed contract.
I think that's
because there was wiggle room. At the 20th overall pick, it wasn't guaranteed whether or not you'd get a fully guaranteed deal or not. And he held out, played his poker face, and he ended up. The Jets ended up caving. They gave him exactly what he wanted. So. Yeah, I think his mom was kind of right to argue that. Because guaranteed money means a lot.
But she's right. But it's why are you arguing that on Twitter? Why do you care?
And that's a good point too. Why do you need to
yeah, well, I don't know. I basically just said don't be worried about it. No, Kyle Fahey and Miss Lee, you gotta learn some basic manners there. But I don't know. It just seems like she's. It was in the past.
Nope. See, that's just not gonna fly, Ben.
Why?
just not gonna let you see that manners. If somebody attacks you, you can defend yourself.
This is almost as bad as your take about Lorenzo Malden. If somebody spills a drink on you, you should expect to get punched in the face. What was that? Kyle Smith, that was on your show, right?
No, that was
on Jet Nation Radio.
Maybe if you ever called in, Ben, you would know.
Honor. It's about honor.
Yeah.
It is about honor.
Samurai. It was about honor. He's like, Lorenzo Malden should have hit that guy in the face. I was like, Jesus, Kyle.
He should have.
We'll keep moving. We'll stick with the linebacker position. We'll go to other positions in a second. But a guy I'm kind of excited about to see this year, Julian Stanford, has been working hard in the weight room this past offseason. He looks bigger, like Darren Lee, but more on his muscle. You can look at his arms now. He was always a ripped guy, but he looks insane. And he's also been making a lot of plays in training camp. And yes, is this Jets offense not the greatest offense in the world?
Yeah.
Yes, they're pretty terrible. So I believe he's had 2 or 3 interceptions this training camp. I may be wrong, but I know he picked up Hackenberg, and I'm pretty sure he picked up Petty. So I don't know. I'm also excited to see him, and if he can develop, then the Jets will have 2 young inside linebackers. Again, I'll start with you, Smith. Do you have any expectations for Julian Stanford? Are you excited to see him on the field? I know the Jets brought in Demario Davis to be that starting inside linebacker, but do you think Julian Stanford is a guy who could replace Davis in the middle of the year?
Julian Stanford, as of this current moment, he kind of reminds me of one of those guys, and having played football back in the day, there were certain guys, they were good in practice. They would catch a bunch of balls in practice, and they would look good. But once the lights got turned on, they just got nervous, and the crowd was cheering, and then other fans from the other team were criticizing and heckling them. They just couldn't perform. And Julian Stanford was a beast in the preseason last year, but what happened in the regular season? The dude was god-awful. I mean, you want to talk about small linebackers getting pushed around? He was that. And the dude is super athletic. Go and look at his mock draftable.
Yeah,
if he was drafted as a running back, I mean, if you compare him to his measurables to running backs, he'd be like in like the top 10% of running backs in terms of measurables. The dude's extremely athletic. He does look jacked, I think, as you said, Ben. But to me, it's kind of like I got to see it in the games. And I'm not even just talking preseason games. I got to see it in the regular season games at this point. I don't have much confidence in him just because he was so bad when I actually did see him in real, live, actual games last year. The preseason won't tell me much because I saw him in the preseason last year. He was good in the preseason. You know, I think he was Joe Blewett's best player of the entire preseason last year. But lo and behold.
Over Robbie Anderson?
Maybe defensively he was the best player for Joe. You'd have
then
to
again,
ask
Joe thinks like Josh McCown is a top 20 player on this
All
roster.
right.
So I love Joey Blewett. I get on him all the time. Also, I like to dig on Ross Martin. When the crowd cheers and the lights are on, he just choke it away.
That's a great point.
Yeah. Going back to the Deron Lee thing, can we disagree? Todd Bowles is completely mismanaging him. Like, he should definitely be an outside linebacker.
But
right?
I mean, that's what Kyle Smith was saying. I mean, and Kyle Smith. I mean, I think we had gotten a Twitter discussion about this a while ago that you think. No, it wasn't a debate. It was just like I asked him how would you use Darren Lee, and Kyle Smith. I believe you said he's best suited as a 4-3 outside linebacker. So I mean, obviously the Jets aren't married to the 3-4 system, but that's primarily what Todd Bowles likes to play. You can make the argument though that the Jets might be better suited as a 4-3 with, I mean, I know the three different, defensive linemen, Sheldon Richardson, Muhammad Wilkerson, and Leonard Williams are more 3-4 defensive ends. They're all kind of the same player. Just, Leonard Williams is probably the best of them. But, I mean, I guess, Kyle Smith, to kind of shift the topic, do you think the Jets would be better suited as a 4-3 defense? I mean, talking about Darren Lee here, then, I mean, the wealth of riches at the defensive line position?
That's a great question. I mean, in order to really run a really effective 4-3, you need to have good defensive ends that can get to the quarterback. And the thing is about our guys, all of our defensive linemen, they are, they're really good for what they can do. They're very versatile. You can slide them all up and down the line, 5 technique, 4 technique, 3 technique. You can play them right over the center as a 1 or a 0 technique, and they'll do just fine there. But the thing is if you were to line them up straight on the outside shoulder of the tackle or the tight end on any given play, they don't have that much long speed to get to the quarterback. They're not like pure pass rushers in that sense. They can win from many different angles, but like they're not like think about like the Giants teams back in the day when they beat the Patriots. Like you had Umanure and Strahan, pure edge rushing defensive ends.
Carried by their defense.
What'd you say? Absolutely carried by their defense.
Kyle,
let's
say
go.
he's not a big fan of Manning.
I hate the Giants, man.
Well, I hate the Giants too, guys. But in order to run a really successful 4-3, you need guys like that. And the thing is, if you put Mo out there, you put Leo out there, you put Sheldon out there, they can win at times, but they're not going to win consistently like that because they're too damn big to play those types of positions. That's not their strength. So I don't know that necessarily we'd be better suited for a 4-3. Darren Lee would certainly be better suited in that type of defense for sure. There's no question about it. But when you move him to 3-4 inside linebacker, he's out of his position. So that's the big conundrum that you're in. You have this first-round draft pick linebacker in Darren Lee, who's kind of in a system where your best talent on defense is better suited for a 3-4 defense. So,
Well, yeah, and Kyle, I mean, just hypothetically, and Todd Bowles has said, I mean, they play a bunch of different formations, so you'll see 4-3 formations on the field from the Jets. It's just primarily they've used a 3-4 in the nickel and other sorts of formations. But Kyle Smith, theoretically, what would the front seven look like for the Jets if they ran a 4-3 defense right now? What would you put out there if you're Coach Todd Bowles?
If I'm running a 4-3 defense, what would I put out there? Is that what you're asking me?
Yes, exactly. I mean, who would be, where would Leonard Williams line up? Would Jordan Jenkins line up with his hand in the dirt? How would everything play out?
Well, if I'm running a 4-3 traditional style defense with the Jets personnel, I would definitely keep Leo on the inside. I'd probably put Leo as my 1 technique. And when I say 1 technique, I mean either a 1 or a 0. 0 means he's right over the center because Leo showed many times last year they would line him with that angled stance where he would kind of be pointing at an angle towards the center. He can play in that role and dominate in that role. and then or I'd put him as a 1 technique, which means inside shade of the guard. I put Sheldon at a 3 technique. That's always been his best position, which means outside shade of the guard on the other side. I would put Muhammad Wilkerson as one of the 5 techniques. I would put Muhammad Wilkerson as, let's see, if they're running a tight end, I would put him over the tight end, I guess, because I would put Wilkerson. I have to think about this a little bit. This is a good question. I put Wilkerson at the 5 technique just because you can't expect him to go over to 7. The further you get Wilkerson from the ball, the longer he has to get. He doesn't have that much speed, so you want to keep him closer. And then I would keep Jordan Jenkins on the tight end side with like a 7 technique. And as linebacker personnel, you put Demario Davis as the Mike backer, right in the middle of the defense. I'd put Darren Lee as the weak side backer. And who the hell would my other linebacker be?
I mean,
that's a good question.
Strong, it could be. I mean, you look at Dylan Donahue, Lorenzo Malden.
I would probably put Donahue there before Malden because Malden is not good in run support. No. Now the thing is, I want Jordan Jenkins on the line of scrimmage because if he's there, he's naturally going to pass rush more, and he shows more to me as a pass rusher than Malden or Donahue for that matter. So, I mean, Donahue, I don't know how good he would be as an off-ball linebacker, to be completely honest. So,
well, I mean, you could also there's also some line, and this is partly what the preseason is for, to see, do the Jets have anybody else in the linebacking core? Frank Beltre, I believe, is a guy who's been playing pretty well. I believe
talent.
we have some other linebackers there, so maybe the Jets will find a guy. And as you said, Julian Stanford was a guy who played really well during the preseason and didn't, perform when the lights came on. But the Jets, do have some young linebackers there. The hope is at least one of those guys would be good. But, sticking with you, Kyle Smith, and then we'll go to Kyle Fahey with his thoughts on this. I mean, couldn't you argue that front 7 would be better than what the Jets are doing right now with, trying to line Sheldon Richardson up as a linebacker and then Davis and Lee in the middle with Donahue on the outside, and then you're starting Jenkins on the outside, and then you're starting, McClendon and Leo and Mo. I mean, would you argue that that the 4-3, front 7 that you just described would be better than the 3-4 that the Jets are currently employing?
It's tough to say. Right now, if I had to answer that question, I would say yes, I do think so. I do think that would be better. Because I know that those defensive linemen, they can win in those positions. Every position that I said that they would play in, they can win from those positions. I don't know that Darren Lee can win as a true inside linebacker. And when you're talking about a 20th overall pick, you need him to be performing at a good level. So I want to put him in a position where he can also succeed. So
I don't think it would hurt too many other people. I mean, you mentioned, Sheldon's going back to his natural, kind of, not natural, but, back to the 3 technique, as you mentioned. Leo still dominates on the interior. I believe Mo, you mentioned he's a little farther away from the ball, but, Mo, I believe, could probably play that 5 technique. And then, we haven't seen too much of Jenkins with his hand in the dirt, but I believe, that's one of those positions you haven't really seen. But when we did see it, occasionally, he, as you mentioned, he did show some promise as a pass rusher. So as far as the defensive line goes, you can argue that is a very strong front 4 as opposed to playing McClendon and whatnot, and having Richardson stand up. Fahey, I want to turn to you. Your thoughts on, would the Jets be better suited as a 4-3 defense?
I think that really depends. I don't trust Todd Bowles, first of all. I want to say that. I do not trust him to make decisions or develop players properly. So, I think this year and probably next year will just be a waste of talent and years off of Leonard Williams and Jamal Adams' career. So, right now, I think we should stick with 3-4 because I think Sheldon is best as a pure, just the guy you need to line up, like Kyle said, by the guard, just let him win. Let Leonard Williams kind of do what we saw with Ndamukong Suh, how he lines up, kind of on that angle. I forgot what you called it. I think you called it a 1. And then just let Mo does what he does on the left side. And then the linebackers, I honestly don't know what to do. We do not have a true middle linebacker. We do not have that true guy, at least in my opinion. Demario Davis is below average compared to most NFL linebackers. And then the outside, we have Jordan Jenkins, who we're hoping we have something. Lorenzo Malden, it's been a couple years and he hasn't shown us a lot. So I think we'd rather just stick with where we are right now and not hurt the development of the guys who are succeeding.
It's the conundrum that you're in as a Jets fan. Sometimes, the thing with Bowles has always been, as far as I understand, he's been more of a 3-4 type of guy, whereas you look at a coach like Belichick is, from season to season, he can go to more of a 4-3 look or of a 3-4 look in any given season. So some coaches are married to their certain scheme and what they're comfortable with, and other coaches are versatile and they can adapt to what their personnel is. And we have to be honest with ourselves. 2 seasons in thus far, Bowles hasn't shown that he's really been very adaptable to his personnel. Yep. I mean, the way that he's mismanaged Sheldon Richardson the past couple of years is atrocious. I mean, that guy, he was dominant. You're talking all-pro type of level, Rex Ryan's last year, when they only had 4 wins that season. But Bowles, I mean, granted, not a huge percentage of the snaps, but regardless, he shouldn't be that far away from the line of scrimmage. The way that he used Calvin Pryor in man coverage, atrocious, as a single high safety sometimes. No way that guy should have been as a single high safety. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, well, and it's not his only. I mean, you mentioned Bowles does have a pattern of misusing guys. I mean, you think of Darrelle Revis is definitely a solid example. But as far as Sheldon Richardson goes, I mean, he said, I'm pretty sure during a press conference that this is the last time Sheldon Richardson will be used as an outside linebacker. He's not going to be used at the linebacker position anymore. But then, the depth chart, and you can argue, its merits and how, official it is. Bowles said the Jets didn't really, talk about it. It was just kind of put together for the website. But Sheldon Richardson is listed as an outside linebacker. So I worry about Bowles' ability to make those decisions. It's one of the things I do worry about with him. Obviously, the game management, there's those type of, issues. I mean, he has some fundamental issues with his coaching. The guys seem to like him. I mean, look, nobody's going to come on this podcast and trash Bowles, but it did sound pretty genuine when guys like ASJ and Kelvin Beachum were talking positively about him. So it does seem like the guys like him, and he does obviously have his strengths. But as far as his defensive system, I mean, he was supposedly a great defensive mind, just like Rex Ryan. And you can argue the talent he's working with, but I mean that defensive line is pretty talented. And he's either misused them or they're just not performing. I mean, there are plenty of, the one that comes to mind just off the top of my head, not just defensively, but offensively, not using Chris Ivory in the Week 17 game against Buffalo. I mean, that was just a maddening, and, I know Ivory was a little hurt, but he still had, I think, like 74 yards on 4 carries. Yeah. He had like 74, yards on 4 carries, and it's like he's a guy, it's like, guys, it's the last game of the year here. Play him. I mean, I don't care. Just get to the playoffs. Then when you get to week 1, if Ivory's still hurt, you still have Powell. Like Powell would come back. So I don't know.
Hey Ben, if I can interject there, you're saying that the players like Bowles, and to that I might not be able to disagree with that. I mean, Brandon Marshall said glowing things about him, but I will say this: there is a big difference between liking someone and respecting someone. Yep. And let me tell you what, as a teacher, and you guys as students, you know this. My first couple of years as a teacher, my students liked me a lot. They loved me. I was cool. I spoke to them in their language. I sat down with them at lunch. Sometimes I bought some of them lunch. We played Xbox, FIFA games during when they had lunch.
What?
You got an Xbox?
You got an Xbox?
Yes. Now listen. They liked me, but they didn't respect me because I didn't have enough discipline. I didn't discipline them enough. There weren't enough consequences for when they did something wrong. And look at Bowles last year. When apparently Muhammad Wilkerson and Sheldon and these type of superstars on our team were missing meetings for 2 years in a row. And now you're going to reprimand them mid-season? No. It doesn't work like that. They tell you as a teacher, you got to instill your rules the first couple days of school. You can't expect to mid-school year, all of a sudden you're going to lay down the law and, okay, here's the new rules. No, the students already know what's up. They already know your deal. Yeah. You got to teach it to them on the first days of school. So I'm saying, like, Bowles, the way I look at it is some players might like him. They might like that he's a little laid back. They might like the fact that he's a player, but I don't know that this team respects him.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point. I mean, I think it might have been Greg Popovich. I don't want to site here, but I'm pretty sure it's Greg Popovich. I mean, it's a pretty universal thing that you said. I mean, it's easier to soften up over time than it is to start out soft and become more difficult as a coach and more demanding. Bulls, I think that's a fair point, and you can also look at the locker room trouble that they've had this season. We'll see if Bulls can address some of these issues. And as far as the respect, I mean, we really don't know. I mean, Bulls was supposed to come in here and be the disciplinarian after Rex Ryan. Yes, Kyle, put some respect on it. But it's Rex Ryan was that laid-back, cool coach, and I think he's a perfect example of, especially from 2012 to 2014, of a guy the players really loved. I mean, look at the end of 2013 season where the players are celebrating like we just won the Super Bowl after we finished 8-8, but it was because Rex Ryan was staying. That's an example of a guy that the players really liked but probably didn't respect. I mean, and we thought when we brought in Bulls that he was going to be that that hard ass, that disciplinarian that guys would respect. Thank you, Kyle. But now now we don't know if that's the case, especially after 2016. Let's switch gears here for. Oh, all right, fine. Kyle Fahey.
On this. You brought in how Bulls he's mismanaging the talent he has, and I just like to point out, look at the way he's drafting. Leonard Williams. All right, it's basically exactly what Calais Campbell is. That's most people's comparisons for him. That's a similar type of player. You're getting the same.
I hope his ceiling's a little higher than Campbell's, though.
Oh, absolutely. I think it is. That's exactly what he had in Arizona. You look at guys like Tony Jefferson and now with Jamal Adams, Marcus May with Tyrann Mathieu. I'm not saying Marcus May and Tyrann Mathieu are similar players. Kyle, Ben, I can already see your faces. I'm not
Tony Jefferson and Jamal Adams. Ugh.
Interchangeable safeties who have the ability to do almost anything you ask them to do.
Okay. I'll see.
He's drafting similar type of players.
I'll concede you that point.
Deion Buchanan, Deron Lee. Similar type of players.
I mean,
safety, linebacker hybrids, faster individuals. I think Deion Buchanan is a better player right now. Hopefully Deron Lee has a better career overall. But just saying, look at the way he's drafting. Jeremy Clark. Big physical guy who we take in the late rounds just because that's exactly what Bulls like. Were there other better options? Absolutely. But we took him because that's what Bulls likes. And I was actually a big fan of Jeremy Clark. I'm not trying to say anything against Jeremy Clark, but you just look at the way he's drafting and building the defense. It's starting with the D-line. It's going to the safeties, Deron Lee. I mean, he's building the way he likes this defense, and I don't know how that's going to work out for the next guy who's going to be in here, and that's not going to be too far. When the next guy gets in here, it's going to be Leo's prime. It's going to be Jamal's prime. It's going to be Deron Lee's prime. So I don't know how this is going to work out in the end for the Jets. Hopefully John Gruden can turn the ship around, but
oh, my God.
And on that point,
Sam Darnold and Josh Gruden.
Fahey, I know you retweeted this tweet that I sent out the other day, Maccagnan is kind of one thing you could say is, everybody likes to say, oh, the reason why Rex Ryan, or at least some Jets fans will say this, the reason why Rex Ryan, he should still be with the Jets because, Idzik didn't take care of him. Idzik just hoarded all that money and didn't spend it and didn't give Rex the players that he likes to play defense with. Yeah. Which is kind of somewhat true, but one thing you can't say about Maccagnan is giving Bulls the type of players that he wants. Mm-hmm. Look at arm length. Bulls loves guys with that are really big, especially defensive backs I'm talking about, that are big, tall, and have good arm length. And if you look at Marcus May's arms, he's the 78th percentile for safeties. Jamal Adams, 93rd percentile. Morris Claiborne, 94th percentile. These are all guys, and obviously Justin Burst. Maccagnan brought in all these guys, and you have to believe that part of the reason is because I want to give Bulls what he needs. But the question is, Bulls gets canned at the end of the season. Maccagnan all of a sudden has brought in, and I know Claiborne's only on a one-year deal, but Maccagnan has brought in these guys to sort of certain coaches type of scheme, and which might be totally different from the new coach that comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's my point there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that is definitely a big part of a GM and head coach relationship is the chemistry that they have. And that was a problem with Rex and Idzik and Bulls and Maccagnan. It sounds like it was a little bit of a forced marriage, but it seems like they at least work in tandem. And I'm one of those guys that likes Maccagnan, and it begs the question, why do I like Maccagnan? And I saw this question on Twitter, and I guess I'll ask it. We'll switch it up. We'll ask Fahey first this time.
Thanks, guys.
If the Jets go, I'll give you what Kyle Fahey wants. If the Jets go 2-14 and they have the number 1 overall draft pick,
I don't want it. I expect it.
Well, okay, sure, whatever. Well,
I want it.
Yeah, it seems like Kyle Smith and Fahey are both aboard the tank. I
might have to order a shirt.
We will get into the tank discussion in a bit later. We're going to do this. We'll bring on some callers, and we'll talk about the tank. But why not talk about this first, Maccagnan's future and Bowles' future? If the Jets go 2-14, I mean, look, Kyle, I assume that you're firing Bowles, and I would assume that I think I'd fire Bowles. I mean, look, there's people say, I mean, there's like good 6-10s and there's bad 6-10s, but I don't think there's a good version of 2-14. I mean, unless Hackenberg looks solid or whatever. But Fahey, we'll start with you. If the Jets go 2-14, are you firing Maccagnan, or I guess I'll ask it like this: are you trusting Maccagnan to pick that top quarterback, or are you firing him, firing Bowles, and trying to bring in another GM?
I'm keeping Maccagnan. I think he's proven he can find talent. He's 0 for 2 on quarterbacks, but then again, I think most GMs.
Whoa! We don't know that for sure. He's presumably 0 for 2 on quarterbacks.
He's 0 for 2. And that's not even counting signings.
Well, okay, let's run through his besides, if we ignore, I think Joe Caparosa tweeted this out, his 2015 draft, if you ignore Leonard Williams, Devin Smith, Lorenzo Malden, Bryce Petty, Jarvis Harrison, and Deion Simon, not the Fab Five right there.
I see 2 starters.
So his late round drafting, well, who are your 2 starters in that situation? I mean, Lorenzo Malden's a situational pass rusher. Devin Smith's been
Leonard
out
Williams, Deion Simon.
Well, I said ignoring Leonard Williams, but yes, his late round drafting is questionable. But as far as his talent evaluation, I guess I'll let you finish your point.
You're going to nitpick at 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks, judging.
I'm just saying. I mean, you look at the best teams. Kyle, and they all are good late round draft picks. You can look at some of the Patriots.
And you also look at who their head coaches are and how they can develop players.
That's a fair point. But you look at all
Bill Belichick in New England. They're the masters of finding late round picks. We don't have the head coach.
That's what I'm trying. First of all, Kyle, you can't just say, well, they're the masters of finding the late round picks. I think some credit has to go to some of their GMs, and I know Bill
Belichick is the GM.
I know Bill Belichick's the GM of the Patriots.
No, John Schneider has done a fantastic job.
You look at the late round drafting of most good teams, and it's spectacular. It's not necessarily just the first pick. It's the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and et cetera. Well, yeah, Fahey, I'll let you finish, but you look at some of that late round drafting, and then if you look at 2016, I pulled it up here. I mean, obviously you have Darren Lee first, you have Hackenberg. I mean, we're presuming he's not going to be that good, but you never know. Jordan Jenkins was a solid pick. His 2016 draft wasn't terrible.
I like that.
Burris, I like the pick. His 2016 draft was actually much better. Shell, a solid right tackle. So I think this is probably, and then Lack Edwards was a.
That's to be determined. I'm still holding out for Lack.
Oh, and Peak. I forgot about Peak. Those are all solid. Those are all solid picks. I mean, you could argue whether Darren Lee's had some struggles, and Hackenberg's obviously had some struggles, but his 2016 was a little better, and then 2017 is yet to be determined. So, Fahey, I'll let you make your point on why the Jets should keep Maccagnan, and then Smith will go to you, and then we'll bring on some callers.
First round picks. You look at what he did in Houston as a director of college. The look Ben just gave me, it was not a good one. I don't know if he meant to do that.
Out.
Oh, okay. Well, you gave me like an eye flurry, and I was like, uh-oh, what did I say? You look at what he did with Houston when he was director of college scouting. I trust him to find pass rushers. I just don't think he's found the one yet. J.J. Watt, that was considered a risk necessarily at the 11th pick. Whitney Merciless, I mean, that was nice. Jadeveon Clowney, that was obviously a problem with his knees at the time and his injury history. I mean, I think he's capable of finding talent and, maybe take away the anchor Todd Bowles has on his ankle right now, and he's not hanging in the Hudson. I mean, he is literally doggy paddling right now to, keep his, reputation because of how Todd Bowles is managing this team.
That's a good point. I mean, you did mention that a lot of the guys Maccagnan has selected are Bowles guys, so, Bowles obviously has a say, and we just talked about how that's a good thing, but is that an anchor on Maccagnan's, draft pick? Do you think that's impeding him taking the guys he wants? Probably not. I would assume Maccagnan probably has the overruling.
I think it is.
But you have to, he has to turn to his coach. I mean, he has to turn to Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles is the coach. And, okay, I'm going to try to give you the guys that it's going to put the team in the best position to succeed. What do you need? And then he's taking that advice and making the pick. Kyle Smith, I want to get your take. Should the Jets trust Mike Maccagnan with that, with a top pick if they do inevitably, falter this season?
I'm not the hugest Maccagnan fan. There are some Jets fans out there that absolutely love the guy. There are some Jets fans that think, Executive of the Year, he fully deserved that honor. But when you kind of look at that Executive of the Year award in retrospect, you think like, wow, he spent all this money in free agency, and how many of those players are really left over? Did those players even accomplish a postseason appearance? No, they didn't. So I think there's a lot more to question there. I don't think we could say like, this guy is great. He's a top 10 GM. I don't even know if we can say he's a top 15 GM. One thing you can say about Maccagnan is he gives zero craps about what anyone else thinks. You know, he doesn't care about drafting very analytical-based players that rank high in like Pro Football Focus rankings or something like that. He goes off the beaten path and he'll do very unconventional things. Case in point,
Donahue,
Hackenberg in round 2, Dylan Donahue. There's numerous examples. Obviously his 2 picks that he had at 6 overall were consensus great players in the draft. But I'm a little scared, to be honest. I would not fire Maccagnan at the end of the season because I think you need to give GMs a long time. And I've seen enough from him that I'm comfortable to keep him at least for another year. But the question is this. If we have the top pick in the draft, first overall, Maccagnan's drafting a quarterback, and I'm looking at Maccagnan's track record with quarterbacks that he's brought in here, and I'm really not too keen on it. Hackenberg, terrible pick. Petty, I didn't like that pick either. And then you're talking about McCown, Fitz. What good quarterback has he really brought in here? And look at some of the other guys that he's passed up on. So there was rumors that we were trying to trade for Trevor Siemian, regardless of whether or not that's true. Trying to trade for A.J. McCarron. If you watched A.J. McCarron play, there's nothing that you could see in that guy that leads you to believe that he's going to be a quality starter. Who else were we interested in? Apparently, we're interested in Jay Cutler at one point. And I get it.
Well, yeah, but Kyle, you have to say. I mean, interested in and actually bringing in. I mean, there's the rumors. Some of them are probably.
I hear you with that, but I've also
and the rumors and some he just keeps tabs on. He just thinks about. I mean, I think they brought in RG3, and you have to wonder, was that more of a bringing in Fitzpatrick type of ploy? Were they actually interested? I mean, I don't think you can judge him on guys he was interested in, because preferably you'd want your GM to be interested in everybody. Keep tabs on everybody. I mean, right? Or is that or am I mistaken there?
That's a fair point, Ben. But that still doesn't answer the people that he already has brought in, signed to contracts, traded for, drafted. Which, if we look at that track record so far, you cannot like his evaluation of quarterbacks thus far. And I draft rumors too. Like, was he interested in Davis Webb? Probably not, but that was alarming to say the least when we did hear such rumors. So I don't know. I mean, you don't need to be a genius. Let's say Sam Darnold is the real deal, and he goes out and has a great college season, declares for the draft, and he's everybody's consensus #1 overall quarterback. Well, you don't have to be a genius to make that pick. So. But if it is close and there's a bunch of guys, Rosen,
you look at
Darnold,
the
Allen, they're all close, I'm not going to be totally confident in the guy.
And Fahey, I'll go to you in just a second, but you look at the Wentz versus Goff type of discussion we had, and neither guy is amazing, but Wentz is definitely much farther ahead of Goff. And Kyle Smith, I will say, I do remember you were big on the Goff hype train. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I'm not ready to give up on him. I know Travis Wingfield, our buddy Fahey, really.
Travis and I are done on him.
But listen though. But Goff, what did he have out in L.A.? You're talking the worst offensive line in the league, no receivers to throw to. Now, granted,
Kenny Britt's the real G. I mean, I'd take him.
Stop it. We would take him right now, yes, but
you can make the same argument with Hackenberg this season.
No.
Yes, and that's fair. And honestly, we're not going to get a great evaluation of Hackenberg for that reason, but Hack still sucks.
Yeah.
Period.
Hack sucks either way.
But yeah, I mean, Goff has not impressed thus far. He's been a disappointment. He wasn't able to unseat whatever the other guy's name is. Case Keenum. He wasn't.
Sean Mannion.
Supposedly, if you watched the Hard Knocks or whatever the hell he was on, he showed like he looked completely lost in the film room and stuff. So I'm not ready to give up on him, but yes, it is a concern. I don't even know how the hell we got on that topic of.
Yeah, we'll go to calls in just a second, but I will say, just because while we're on the topic of Goff, I mean, you look at his physical abilities, you compare them to Christian Hackenberg. Kyle has made the bold statement that Bryce Petty is the most talented quarterback on the roster. Just from a purely physical statement, I strongly disagree and say this is Hackenberg. Kyle Smith, you're shaking your head. What is your take on this? It's got to be Hackenberg, right? You look at the arm talent, purely physical. Arm talent, size.
But that isn't
He's
the game.
displaying his mobility a bit in training camp.
Game. It's everything. It's mechanics.
You said talented. You said talented. You didn't say
that is
best.
talented. You think
you said best. You said talented.
His arm strength and athletic ability? No, it's because of his brain. You look at Christian Hackenberg. He has terrible mechanics. He can't set up in the pistol. Dude doesn't even know how to aim himself. That's why he's so inaccurate. And he couldn't fix it before the combine, no matter what quarterback coach or guru he hired. At least Bryce Petty is ahead of him in that perspective.
But
I don't think you can make that statement.
I don't. When I think of Bryce Petty, the word talent would never come to my mind. Talented. I don't see any talent there with him.
I said on this roster.
Okay, but listen to me. The dude can't push the ball deep. Think about when the limited opportunities that he did get. Robbie Anderson smokes Tremaine Johnson. You're talking about a cornerback that got franchise tag 2 years in a row. Robbie Anderson smokes him deep. All Petty has to do is hang the ball out there in front of him, and Robbie Anderson's going 90-something yards for a touchdown.
I'm not saying Bryce Petty's great or good. I'm just saying he's the most talented. Point. I'm just saying he's the most talented on the roster.
He's Gary Smith Jr.
No,
if you know that.
Not. He doesn't have any zip on his balls either. And I'll say this. I don't like Hackenberg. You guys know that. But when I went to practice, there is a marked, distinguished difference between the way that Hackenberg zips that ball and the way the other two quarterbacks do. And in this league, where defensive backs break on the ball so quickly and coverage, you can be open for a split second. You have to throw in these tight windows. You need to be able to put some heat on this ball. And you look at the amount of heat that Hackenberg
I posted today
on Twitter. I have not.
Check it.
Okay, I'll check it. Is it about Petty?
Yeah, it's Petty making an amazing throw, and I said this is why I think
one
Petty's
throw.
It was in double coverage to Robbie Anderson, and it was.
Was that the throw against the Niners?
Hey, but listen,
no.
Hack apparently made an amazing throw the other day too to cap off the end of practice.
He's made amazing throws. He threw an 80-yard touchdown 2 years ago, as you said, and he threw 2 touchdowns today. I mean, Hack has great moments and really terrible moments. That's his problem. The Hack's problem isn't his ceiling. It's his floor. The problem is, I think he makes terrific throws, and then when
practice, not a game.
Okay, perfect usage of the soundbite. I will give you that.
We're talking about
practice. All right, you can end the soundbite. I will say this. Okay, is the soundbite over?
It goes for a long time. It's out.
He kind of rambles on that for a second. But I'm just saying, when Hackenberg's bad, he's really bad. But when he's good, he's pretty good. Petty's more of the guy that has a higher floor than Hackenberg, but a much, much, much lower ceiling. And Fahey, your original argument to me was that, no, Petty has a much higher ceiling. Now, that's incorrect. Not only is Petty, I think he's 25 or 26. He obviously has back issues. Hackenberg's better in size, arm talent. He's been displaying his ability a bit in practice. I don't play the Allen Iverson soundbite again. But as far as most talented, I'm not saying Chris Hackenberg is amazing. I'm just saying, compare Petty or Hackenberg. Hackenberg definitely has way more talent. It's just where do the floors line up, and you can make. I
agree with you that he is. I'm not going to say way more talented, but I'm going to agree with you that he is the most talented. And honestly, like Fahey, if you're going to talk about like things like footwork and stuff and drops, Petty's not good at that. I mean, Petty's only operated out of the shotgun basically his whole career in college, so he's not like he's good at taking drops. But if you want to say that he's better than Hackenberg at this point, I won't dispute that. But if you're going to make a claim that counts as talent, then I would also say that Hack's mental capacity also counts as talent. And if we're talking mental capabilities, Hack is, I would say, significantly ahead of Petty in that regard. Guys, watch Petty play. It looks like Petty's pump faking, but he's really not pump faking. The reason why Petty does that, he's second guessing himself because his eyes.
I've noticed
he's not trusting his eyes, but that's because he can't read defenses.
I think it's more because he's shell shocked. I I've brought it up on the show before. I think he is just shell-shocked. I mean, you look out there, the dude was hit like every 3 seconds. And I think as a young quarterback,
wouldn't that make him force the ball? Like, wouldn't that make him just throw the ball way? Yeah. Wouldn't make him hold on to it.
I think he forced it into coverages.
I thought we were talking about. Okay, well,
there was plenty of times, and I get it. You say shell shock, that happens when even he's not under pressure. But there were so many times last year when he had a clean pocket when he was doing that stuff. So, let's just be honest. We don't have much talent at the quarterback position. Period.
Yeah.
And hopefully Ben will come to his senses soon. And can I say this about the quarterbacks too?
All right.
Honestly, at practice, and this is the last thing I'll say about quarterbacks. I honestly, at the beginning of practice, I was impressed by Hackenberg. I saw a significant difference this year in training camp practice versus last year. His footwork looked a lot better. His footwork looked a lot better. I noticed there was more zip on the ball. He did look bigger and more thick than he did last year. He looked more confident than he did last year. And his passes early on in like individual drills were on the money. But as I said last week when I called into you guys.
Now here's the but. Here's the but. All right.
Out. What did I say when I called into the show last week? I said, it's practice right now, guys. We're talking about practice, right? And I said, he's throwing against air right now. What happened is once they got to team drills, and it was a padded practice. You're talking they were tackling running backs to the ground that day. Now, obviously, they can't tackle Hackenberg, but they can get in his face and pressure and move him off his spot. Once they got to team period, he was terrible, and he would have had – now, they say, Hack hasn't thrown an interception in team period yet. He would have thrown an interception, but the defensive back hit him in both of his hands, and he dropped it. Hack was not good in that team period at all.
I will say sorry, continue with your point.
I mean, it's just exactly what I said. You know, it's a guy that doesn't deal well with pressure, and once the pressure got on him, you know, his footwork's, you know, it broke down and it became robotic. So,
yeah. Well, I will say a few things, and then we're going to go to the callers really quickly. One, the practice you did go to was one of his poorer practices. I guess that's the right statement. It wasn't one of his better practices. That's what I'm trying to say. I mean, he's
the average day in the life of Christian Hackenberg.
Well, yeah, no. This was the argument I made. Is I mean, when he's on, and then the problem is that he outweighs the good as a lot of bad. So he'll make some throws that'll make you jaw drop. You know, your jaw hit the floor, and then he'll do things that remind you he's still learning. But that is the point. He is still learning. He still has the capacity to get better. I definitely think that the Jets should start him, and he's going to have growing pains. He's going to throw a few pick sixes. He's going to but hopefully, if he plays a full season, by the time he gets to the end of the year, the good will outweigh the bad. Let's go to our first call of the night.
Swear to God, if he gets us like 6 games and we just like keep everybody and don't draft a quarterback, I will be on some intense suicide watch, guys. Just letting you know.
We'll talk about the tank in just a second, but I guess really quickly,
you got to go to my brother's wedding. You got to be there for that.
Yeah. Go to Gary's wedding, and then
I'm down for that if we can make that work. Just letting you know.
All right, go ahead, Ben.
Let's go ahead. Yeah, let's go ahead and bring on CJ, who's been on the phone lines for a while. We were talking to him earlier. Yeah, we were Kyle and him were talking before I arrived. CJ, how you doing, man?
Doing great, guys. Doing great. Enjoying the show so far.
It's fun. I think Kyle Smith is a very nice mediator between Fahey and I. It's a nice change of pace between Fahey and I just screaming at each other.
I deal with guys your age all day.
That's a good point. He has experience. CJ, let's start. We've been talking a lot about the defense. Let's go to the offense. I guess really quickly before we go into other topics, we kind of open up the show with it. Obviously, the terrible news the Jets have received this week is Quincy Enunwa out for the year, bulging disc in his neck. The positives is one, we get to see a lot more of the young guys. I mean, one of the guys I was looking forward to seeing was Quincy Enunwa, but we get to see the other guys. And the other positive is the Jets could re-sign him for a lot cheaper since he won't have this season. And we believe, as Kyle Smith and I talked about earlier, we believe he's a restricted free agent. So those are the two positives. Besides that, really negatives. I mean, he was one of the most exciting players on the team, a guy that was starting to get respect around the league. You talked about Malcolm Butler, respecting him during the Jets-Pats game. Kyle. But basically, CJ, I want to get your thoughts. I mean, what can the Jets do to replace Quincy Enunwa? Who is going to be that guy that steps up? Is it Robbie Anderson? Does he have the capacity to become that number one wide receiver? CJ, you told us, I believe it was a few weeks ago, you're a big fan of Jerome Peak. I know Kyle Smith is not. Maybe that's a topic of discussion we'll have in a second. But who is that guy that's going to take that number one wide receiver role? Can you see Robbie Anderson doing that? Is he a guy that can run more than one route? And that's not really what we've seen. We've seen a very limited route tree from Robbie Anderson. However, the flip side of that is he did have the best statistical season for a Jets rookie wide receiver since, I believe it was Keyshawn Johnson. So, I mean, there's that going for him.
Number one overall pick, Keyshawn Johnson. I'm just saying.
You can make that argument. But, CJ, who's going to step up? Jerome Peak, Robbie Anderson, Stuart Hansen, one of these other young guys. I mean, who on earth is going to be present themselves as a great target for Christian Hackenberg at the receiver position?
All right, well, I got a couple of different answers to this question. But first off, this is for Kyle Smith out there. From one teacher to another, I just want to say I greatly appreciate what you do with the kids. I think it's a well-respected profession, and although I only got to teach briefly for about 2 years before the university I was working for closed down, I do want to say I enjoy listening to you. This is actually the first time I've gotten the opportunity to listen to you on a podcast, so it's great to finally get to talk to you.
Absolutely, man, and I've heard you. Actually, to be honest, I have not listened to your show. I will give it a listen, but I've heard you call in to Jet Nation Radio and this show before, and I've always appreciated your takes. And Let's Talk Jets as well, for that matter. And obviously, we interact on Twitter, so that's what I was thinking. Like when they first put you on, it's finally nice that we get to talk. So I really appreciate that, and I appreciate the love that you say for me being a teacher, and I have respect for you doing that as well. You were teaching college, did you say?
Yeah, I was actually a pharmacy technician instructor for Everest University, which is now unfortunately defunct here in Central Florida. So,
So do you have access to medicine?
Yes, I do. Ooh. I dispense medicine on a regular basis. I actually work in a pharmacy.
I will be texting you later.
Much props to you, CJ. And your show is the CNC Jets Factor, correct?
Right. We actually started out as a CNC Football Factory, but now we are just the Jets Factor.
And honestly, I could see where you're coming from with that. And we kind of alluded to it on this show, and this is not the Kyle Smith show, but I'm no longer doing my podcast about the AFC East, and the reason being is it's really tough to cover so many teams in a lot of detail. So I'm going to focus more of my efforts on the Jets right now, so I can kind of see why you went from general football to more specific Jets related stuff now.
Hey, Kyle Smith is always welcome on our show. Let's just get that out there. Kyle Smith
wants to be replaced. It's going to be easy for the transition. Don't have to change anything. All the graphics, all the content.
I'm just saying, Kyle Smith, if you ever need to talk Jets, you are always welcome to co-host. CJ, you were saying?
Yeah, Kyle, you have an open invitation to the Jets Factor podcast whenever you want. Just DM me, and you are on, my friend.
I would love to. Let me know. Let's do it sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so now to get back to Ben's question over here, talking about the wide receiver. Losing Quincy Enunwa is
only one we have.
Huge. Right. It's a huge blow to the Jets. But again, this is a major teaching moment. And the fact of the matter is that I actually heard Tyson go on a rant last night on Let's Talk Jets, and I was kind of going back and forth with him a little bit on Twitter. And I know Twitter sometimes doesn't really give the opinion that you're trying to put out there justice. So give me the opportunity to elaborate. Although losing Quincy is a huge blow for the wide receiving corps, this is also an opportunity for fringe guys like a Gabe Marks, okay? If Katie Cannon was still on the roster, I would have liked for him to make the squad. Again, also with Devin Street, there were two guys that I had as my sleeper picks, and before they even had their first practice in pads, they were gone. It'll give an opportunity for some fringe guys who maybe might not have gotten that look or would have maybe been lucky to have made the roster via special teams. Now we get to actually see them play. Now we actually get to see John Morton really open up the playbook and see exactly what kind of plays that he could design for the wide receiving core talent that we have. Keep in mind, believe it or not, despite the fact of all the rookies that we have on this squad, the Jets have one of the deepest wide receiving cores in the league, and that's something to be said, because guys that maybe get cut from this squad, they're going to catch on someplace else, and when they do catch on someplace else, they normally blow up, and then Jet fans are kicking themselves like, why didn't we keep this guy? Well, again, in retrospect, hindsight, they say, is always 20/20. Now you kind of take a look at the whole Eric Decker snafu, and you just see how grossly mishandled that entire situation was. So, again, now that being said, for my role players that I'm looking to step up, number one on the board is Robbie Anderson. He's going to have to step up, and he's going to have to just run more routes than just a fly route. And he also is going to have to be able to go over the middle and make those tough catches and hang on to the ball. Now, Jalen Marshall, the smart thing about him was they took away his punt returning duties. They took away his kick returning duties. So his sole responsibility now is just
Kyle
catching
just
that
gave
ball.
to that comment. He hates the fact that Jalen Marshall even had like a ball in his hand if it was kicked over 30 yards in the air.
I mean, at this point, believe it or not, Jalen Marshall was one of those players that he blew up in training camp. When the lights came on and it was time for him to do it during the regular season, he got stage fright. And he ended up dropping the ball, and he ended up making a lot of mistakes. And, sometimes just from that inexperience, sometimes being in that hostile environment when you're there in Buffalo, when you're there in New England, trying to catch that punt or that kick. And, you got fans screaming at you going, "You suck, Jets suck, blah, blah, blah," The athletes hear that, and sometimes, believe it or not, it also depends. A seasoned vet knows how to shut it out. A rookie might take his eyes off the ball for just a second, saying like, "Where the hell is that coming from? Is that guy standing behind me?" Or So again,
look around.
Whether or not it's fundamental or more just the mental aspect of the game, where he just needs to get locked in and just get tunnel vision. Again, that remains to be seen. He'll have this training camp to be able to work out those kinks. So far, he's done well. Gabe Marks has been playing like he's been shot out of a cannon. He's been one of the big surprises in training camp so far. Sharon Peak is somebody that I look to. Now, I know he's not well liked by some people. Some people think that it was a waste of a draft pick to pick him up, but here's my response to that. He's a big guy. He's got good hands, and a lot of his fundamental techniques remind me of Brandon Marshall without all the problems. So if he can continue to chip away at that craft and continue to just get better and work on his fundamentals, I'm telling you, he is going to be a very, very, very good receiver for this football team. But he's got to be given the opportunity. He's got to be put on the field, and he has to prove himself. So, again, with limited reps in practice, the only way that you earn extra reps is by doing well. So this is where he's got to, stop with the drops. He's mentally got to get himself locked in, and he's really got to get himself dialed in for the rest of his training camp. Now,
sorry to cut you off, but CJ, without knowing what's going to happen for the rest of training camp, if you have to make your prediction from home, what do you think the Jets starting lineup at receiver will look like week one? Your top three receivers, who are they going to be without the absence of Quincy Enunwa?
It's definitely going to be Robbie Anderson. I would probably have to say Darius Stewart, and then if I had to guess, it will probably be a platoon of either Gabe Marks and Sharon Peak or Chad Hansen. But it's definitely it wouldn't surprise me at all if my top three ended up being Anderson, Stewart, and Peak.
So would you play Stewart in the slot there? Because I personally think he'd be better as a slot receiver.
Oh, absolutely. Because he's one of those. He's a shifty guy. Like some of the ways, if you actually take a look at the way Darius Stewart runs, reminds me a lot of Wayne Corbett. He's got that sneaky, deceptive speed where he can make you miss. All he has to do is just take a stutter step and he's gone. And Wayne Corbett was like that. And, despite the fact a lot of people used to rag on Wayne Corbett saying he was too small to play in the NFL because at that type they were looking for the 6'5", 6'6" prototypical receiver. And, when he came out of Hofstra, everybody was like, it's a long shot that he's going to make the club. He turned out to be one of the best receivers of all time in Jets history. So,
Smith, I guess
again,
Smith. Oh, sorry, continue.
Again, using that comparison to Wayne Corbett, I think Ardarius Stewart, as long as he can keep himself as fundamentally sound as possible, and he could absorb as much of this offense as he can, he can flourish. He really can flourish. So, I mean, I one of the things that makes me laugh, and I know because we're talking about the wide receivers, I have to bring this up. Every time I look at Jets Twitter, there are times when I don't know whether I want to puke or I want to take my phone and slam it against the wall.
I don't recommend the second one. There. Yeah.
Okay, because some of our fan base is just incredibly so schizophrenic when it comes to when it comes to the wide receiving position. I mean, there were people who were actually happy that Quincy Enunwa was on injured reserve and is out for the season because they're like, oh yeah, here we go, Sam Darnold, here we come, let's start the stuff for Sam camping. Like, come on, guys.
Shot at me, CJ? Come on, I thought we were cool.
Look, no. Listen, if there is anybody out there who is seriously rooting for this team to fail for this year, regardless of what quarterback is going to be in the 2018 draft, if you're going to go on social media and you're actually going to be happy that your number one receiver goes down with an injury and puts him out for the season, don't root for this team. Just don't. Just delete your Twitter account. Sell all of your Jets memorabilia, sell all of your jerseys, because you should be banned from rooting for this team because you're just an idiot. Okay, no one should ever root for a professional athlete to get hurt, period.
Agreed.
Period.
100%.
And I just think that there are just some people, I don't know if they were just trolls or whatever, but I completely think that's inappropriate, and it's a poor message that we're sending out there, because that's why, hence, once again, why the rest of the NFL fan bases laugh at us, because we just continually to just kick ourselves in the ass over and over and over again, and it's people in our own fan base that do it to us.
In my defense, I'd like to clarify. I hate that Quincy Enunwa got injured. I just think it's better for the team long term. That's my take on that. We need a quarterback. We don't have one, and I really wish Quincy was playing. I really do. It sucks that he got injured, non-contact, just the worst way basically to get injured. I was looking forward to it. I don't really think it makes that big of a difference though. Like maybe a game, maybe he catches a game-winning pass, but you're right.
No, I don't think so. I mean, Quincy Enunwa was primed and ready for this year to be his breakout year. Regardless if the Jets would have finished 1-15, 2-14, or 3-13, Quincy Enunwa was going to be the brightest spot of this offense this year. And now that fire has gone out, at least for this year, you still don't know what he is.
I disagree. See, I just think he's max number 2. I don't honestly see him as a number 1.
You can't make that statement, though, Kyle. I mean, yes, I think at this point, if he performs like he did last year, his floor is a number 2 wide receiver. But I think he definitely showed that he could be possibly more than a 1. Kyle, you've really only seen 1 year of him as a contributor. I mean, 2015
is that by coincidence? I mean, he hasn't performed well enough in training camp in any year.
Kyle, he was. Are you kidding me? He was a 6th-round draft pick. 2014, he hardly played. 2015, he did start to make a contribution, but it was 2016 where he made a big contribution. I'm just saying. I mean, this was going to be his first year. He's only 25. His first year of having full-time reps. Kyle Smith, I want to get to you.
You say only 25, but you said Petty was 25 earlier.
It's different for a quarterback. It's different for a quarterback and a wide receiber, and it's also different because Petty is still technically
much longer.
No, because Petty is still technically a rookie at this point. I mean, he's played what, 2 or 3 games?
Quincy has more games, more hits.
He is an old guy who has played 2 games, 3 games. Quincy Enunwa was a guy who's played a season as a practically a starter, and then the other season as a role player. Kyle Smith,
logic doesn't add up.
Ben, you keep wanting to get me to say something. What do you want to ask me?
Well, yeah, I know. We have a lot of chatty Cathys on the show, but I guess that's a good thing. I want to get, what is your prediction for, depending on how the Jets perform in training camp, who are your top 3 wide receivers week 1? What positions in what, X, Y, and slot?
Oh, it's definitely Robbie.
At the X?
No, I don't want. I'd probably put Robbie as the Z. I don't want Robbie on the line of scrimmage. If I can get him off, like you want to get Robbie to avoid as much contact as possible off the line of scrimmage, and he does have like a nice release move. Like he's never going to win with like swatting somebody's hands away or swimming somebody, but he's got this one little jab step where he fakes going one way, like fakes going inside, and then he goes out, and he is quick where he can make people miss like that. But if you can put him in a situation where you put him a little bit off the line of scrimmage, that's advantageous for him. Your slot guy is going to be Ardarius for sure, and I like Ardarius Stewart. Some people think I've crapped on him and stuff. I didn't love the pick. There's other players that I would have taken there. I didn't like his measurables. I didn't like the fact that he's an older player. He's already like 23 years old or whatever. I think maybe almost 24 too. So I didn't like that, but he's a player that you like on your team. I like my comparison for him is, and I say this. People are going to take it the wrong way. I say a homeless man's Jarvis Landry. And the reason I say that is because he doesn't do anything as well as Jarvis Landry, but Jarvis Landry is a Pro Bowl player. If Ardarius Stewart can be a lesser Jarvis Landry, we will take that on our team any day. But the thing about Ardarius Stewart is, look at his tape. In college, he was catching shovel passes, he was doing end arounds, he was catching bubble screens, and that was pretty much it. He did run other routes here or there, but it was very infrequent, very, very infrequent. So, it's laughable to me when some Jets fans say he's a great route runner. You don't have enough tape to say that he's a great route runner. You just don't. But he's going to be a good contributor on this team from day one. You're going to be very limited in what you can do with him. As far as the other receiver, I don't know who you're going to put there. Obviously, Quincy would be that traditional, X receiver that you would put right on the line of scrimmage, taking on the defensive backs, a la like Terrell Owens, but you don't have him anymore. And when I saw Hansen, I did not like Hansen at all at practice. He
doesn't look good.
Took about 5 laps the coaches made him take because he blew his assignment on multiple occasions. He dropped balls. He fumbled balls. He took at least like 5 laps with like grass in his helmet. Morton was so pissed at him. And not to mention that, but he's also not a refined route runner either. I know that CJ likes Peak, but I came on the show last week. I'm not a fan of Peak. And I don't think the Brandon Marshall comparison is an apt comparison at all. Because although Peak might be, have a decent size to him, and listen, he's 209, 6'2". Brandon Marshall's 6'4", 6'5", 230. And Brandon Marshall plays big. Peak does not play big. Marshall throws people around. Peak doesn't throw anybody around. So I don't know who that third receiver is going to be, but I definitely see day one it's going to be Ardarius Stewart, Robbie Anderson for sure. Who's going to be that third guy? I think it could be Jalen Marshall because for whatever reason the Jets staff loves him, but he's 4-game suspension. So
I actually believe it's going to be heavily relied on tight ends. I think Quincy's injury. Go ahead.
We were talking about the wide receiver position, but no. You can talk about ASJ and Leggett.
Yeah, they basically are wide receivers with bigger bodies. You want to talk about somebody who's most comparable to Brandon Marshall? Think hell, the tight ends are comparable, way more comparable than the wide receivers we have. If we want to talk about a big guy who can throw people around and is fast enough to go catch the ball, I think we're going to rely heavily on the tight ends this year. Just run a lot of routes that are simple for young quarterbacks to understand, optimize the talent we have there. I don't know if we'll see it the first 2 weeks because of Jordan Leggett, but I think week 3, come the home opener. By the way, you can get tickets to that. Just use promo code TheJetTake. Link is in our bio. So, I think ASJ is going to have a hell of a year.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
I will say Leggett and ASJ looked good at the practice I went to. Both of them did. I will say that.
It's Gronk and Martellus Bennett. I mean, watch out, NFL.
No, and when we had ASJ on the show, though, I mean, I mean, this is almost common knowledge at this point, but he's lost 33 pounds. I mean, his agent made the statement that he thinks he'll be Pro Bowl. I mean, he's the best shape of his.
Can we say that?
I guess so.
I guess off the record.
I guess that might have been off the record, but I mean, he expects Pro. I mean, he's in the best shape of his life. I mean, he's been dominating. Yeah, if ASJ and Leggett can stay healthy, I'm excited to watch him. 2 tight ends, 2 young tight ends. You know that's Morton will finally use the tight ends, and that I will say. I mean, you look at that is well, I don't know if I'd say Jimmy Graham, but that is a huge thing for a young quarterback to have, is that safety valve. And so if one or both of these guys can develop into a solid receiving threat, and a safety valve for Christian Hackenberg, it might cover some of the deficiencies of the wide receiver position. And I mean, yeah, a young guy could theoretically step up. Maybe it's Harper, maybe it's Frankie Hammond, some guy out of nowhere, kind of like exactly what Robbie Anderson did last year. You never know, but yeah, if those guys can develop, I think it could be pretty huge for Christian Hackenberg. CJ, I want to ask you before we let you go a few things. One, I want to talk about Elijah McGuire. He's a guy I'm personally excited to watch this season. I want to get your take on him. Yeah, I guess I want to get your take on him. Forte is a guy that I'm not really, excited to watch this year. He's kind of a meh. He was good last year for what we expected from a 30-year-old running back. But as far as he's not the future. Powell is old himself. I mean, he's 28, but he doesn't have a lot of tread on the tires. Or I guess would he have a lot of tread on the tires? Is that because he hasn't been?
He doesn't have a lot of tread on the. Or no, he does have a lot of tread. He still does have a lot of tread on the tires.
Yeah, because he hasn't. Yeah, okay. Anyways, Bilal Powell has not been used that much, so he'll probably have a lot. He'll probably have a longer career. But Elijah McGuire, rookie, I'm interested in. He's been making a lot of plays this training camp, specifically with his pass-catching abilities, another thing that could be good for a young quarterback. And you look at all the 3 of the running backs the Jets have, and this might be by coincidence, but I don't think so, that all 3 running backs that the Jets have are receiving, can do good things in the receiving game. I don't think you'd see Chris Ivory still in the Jets uniform under John Morton. I mean, as far as Forte, Powell, and McGuire can all catch the ball, and maybe a guy like Romar Morris, I think he could stick. But I want to get your takes on. I was going to go to Morris next, but McGuire and Morris, 2 young running backs. I'm excited to watch them this preseason. What are your expectations for them this season, and what are you looking forward to seeing from them?
I expect significant contributions from the running backs out of the backfield. I think we're finally going to see what Marty Morningwig, when he was offensive coordinator here at the New York Jets. I'm going back some time, but I think we're finally going to get to see that dream realized, where the best thing that a young quarterback, especially if Christian Hackenberg or Bryce Petty end up starting the season, which I hope one of them does. I swear if I see Josh McCown start, I'm going to mainline whiskey on air.
It's looking like it might be McCown Town.
Oh, God. But anyhow, I really think that the Jets having Forte, Powell, and McGuire with the 3-headed monster back there, you can't displace Morris. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up carrying four backs on this roster, because, I mean, any one of these guys can beat you with some speed. I mean, granted, Forte's lost his step, but he can still proven he's very capable of catching the ball out of the backfield. He's still capable of making guys miss. So he can get you that tough first down. I mean, Bilal Powell is Bilal Powell. I mean, you put a brick wall in front of it. Put a wall in front of him. He's going to run through it.
Yeah, not brick. He's not as good as brick. But you put a regular wall in front of him, he'll break through it.
Yeah. No, he will bust. Bilal Powell is my guy.
Well, I will say this, CJ. I mean, the other thing you have to consider, and we don't really know how Morris and McGuire's health will play out, but we do know Powell and Forte have both struggled with health issues. So, yeah, I would not be surprised to see the Jets carry 4 running backs. I mean, the Jets might try to get risky, but if Morris has a good, or Todman or whoever else is on but I think Morris he has 4.3 speed. He's a big guy. I like watching Morris personally. And I think he could be a good running back for the Jets. But if he has a strong preseason, I don't think the Jets could stash him on their practice squad. So I think the Jets might have to go in with 4, and then when/if Forte or Powell goes down, then you have Morris. Right. But again, the Jets could try to risk it, stash Morris or another guy on their practice squad. again, if Forte or Powell goes down, you bring him up. But I think Morris will make the roster, and I think he'll be a solid contributor. And I'm also excited to watch McGuire in the passing game. CJ, really quickly before we let you go, what are you looking forward to this Saturday against the Titans? Just your expectations. What are you looking forward to seeing?
The one thing that I want to see is I want to see this team take what they do on the practice field and actually translate it into a preseason game. And this is the first step toward what I like to call this year as a 20-game preseason, if you think about it. The only difference is that your first
whoa. I coined that term.
I'm out, CJ.
I coined that term like a month ago.
Ben's been using that for a while now.
Well, I've been kind of coining it myself, so it's okay. I'll give you the credit.
It's okay. We can split the credit on it.
All right, that works. So, one of the things that I'm looking for is I want to see this team every single week when they take the field. I want to see them grow. I want to see them develop. I want to see young and hungry players come out there and play their asses off 110% to go out there and get that win. And the one thing that I want to see is I want to see growth and progressions forward every single week. I get sick and tired of hearing, well, we had a great week in practice, but too bad we lost the game 45-3, because that just makes me want to punch somebody in the head. Okay? I want to see your good week in practice translate on the field. Instead of you guys beating up tackling dummies, beat your opponent. Okay? So whether they win by a touchdown, whether they win by a field goal, whether they win by an extra point, I want to see them go out. I want to see this offense produce. I want to see how this defense is going to progress. This season is, again, it's 20 games filled with preseason. The only difference is your first 4 is 96. That's your roster, and then the other 16 is 53. So as long as every week we're seeing these guys go out there and play their asses off and work hard to really improve their craft and to really improve as a football team, then that to me will be worth the 2-14 or 3-13 or 4-12 or whatever. If I got to watch another disaster like I watched on Monday Night Football, where by the end of the first quarter you saw that the team quit and blatantly did not want to play anymore, then you think the fan base is ornery now? It's going to be 10 times as much if we see that, especially with this young group that we have here. Then there are going to be more people calling for Todd Bowles' head, and don't be surprised if people start looking at Mike Maccagnan as well. So,
CJ, we really appreciate your call. Good stuff as always. We're excited to finally get some Jets football back, and I agree. It's a 20-game preseason. Let's analyze the talent on this roster. CJ, always good to hear from you. Really quickly, where can our listeners give you a follow?
All right. Well, my name is CJ DeSimone. I am co-host of the Jets Factor podcast on SoundCloud.com. You can follow us on nyjetfans.com if they can never get their podcast site working again. You can also follow us on the gruelingtruth.net. You can find me on Google Play, iTunes. Be sure to like and subscribe. One real quick plug before I go here. The Jets Factor podcast is currently going through the series right now called Know Thy Enemy. It's a deep look at the AFC East. I invite everyone to go listen to my last episode, which just posted this past Sunday. We took a look at the Miami Dolphins. And this upcoming Sunday, we are looking at the New England Patriots. So I have a blogger coming on who's going to join me for a few minutes. He's nice enough to give me some time. So definitely going to be an interesting show. I invite everyone to listen in. And Kyle Smith, remember what I said. You have an open invitation on the show, my friend. So hit me up whenever you want.
Love it, man. Ooh. Let's do it sometime soon for sure.
Yeah, but you got to get the Know Thy Enemy thing. He's AFC East Bros. He's at AFC East Bros. Come on.
Well, now it's just bro.
Now it's just bros. CJ, yeah, I guess bro. CJ, yeah. Thank you. Good as always. We'll talk to you soon. All right.
All right. Thanks, guys. Go Jets.
Thanks, CJ. Have a great evening.
All right.
All right, Kyle Smith. We're only graced by Kyle Smith's presence for 20 more minutes. So I guess we're gonna talk with Kyle. We're gonna get everybody on. Do not worry, you're gonna get your chance to speak. But we're not gonna bring on the second round of callers. I believe we have 2 on the line until 7.
We got a mystery one,
10
too.
Eastern times.
10
so
Eastern that ought to be interesting.
That'll be fun. Kyle Smith, let's talk some football with you just since we only get 20 more minutes with you. I guess we'll go.
Such a valuable man.
We have a plethora of topics we can go to. I'm kind of interested, since the Quincy Enunwa injury, a lot of guys have been saying, now granted, everybody in this podcast has said so far, we get a chance to evaluate the young guys on this team. However, throughout preseason, there are guys who get cut, there are guys who get released. Is there anybody you're particularly eyeing that the Jets could, in theory, pick up and try to sign to their team? Not to fill Quincy Enunwa's void, but as a guy that could add to their receiving room?
I wouldn't. I mean, who are you going to pick up? Old Marcus Colston, old Vincent Jackson, guys who are at the end of their careers who are nicking up with injuries now. Like,
Doyle Green Beckham.
Head case worse than Brandon Marshall.
He is as dumb as a box of rocks, that guy. Yeah. Listen, you're not 6'5", 240 pounds, and within your first 2 years in the league, you get cast off of 2 different teams. I mean, Glenn Naughton was saying this on Jet Nation Radio the other day. He was down in Philly, listening to talk radio and talking to friends that listen to a lot of talk radio, and the talk of the town was Doyle Green Beckham didn't know his plays. He didn't. He was never in the right spot. He didn't know where to go, and even when he was dropping the ball. I don't want a guy like that on my team. You got to know where you need to be on the field. Football is a game where you need harmony. If one guy blows an assignment, it could wreak disaster. For example, Rontez Miles, your boy, Ben Blessington.
Well, I don't know if he's turned into my boy. I like him as a third safety.
Your boy. It's your boy.
I didn't say I like him as a starter. I said I like him as a third safety.
Okay, but the thing is, you put Rontez Miles on the field, just know that you could blow a coverage assignment, which could mean a big 40, 50-yard touchdown, which changes games. I can't have a receiver running the wrong route and being in the wrong spot. Quarterback thinks he's going to be there. Quarterback throws the ball because the ball's got to get out when he takes his 5th step, and all of a sudden Doyle Green Beckham's not there and he's picking it off. I'd rather have the young guys that we do have now, just develop them. So no need to bring in an old veteran, Vincent Jackson or Marcus Colston. Just develop what you have now.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be an older veteran. I know, you're an AFC guys, as we talked about. I believe I saw on Twitter it was at Patriots, SB49, a big Patriots account. But they're talking about Devin Lucien. I hope I might be pronouncing that wrong. Patriots, wide receiver. They have a again, plethora of talent on that team. He's a guy that could get cut, might not make the roster. Could you see a guy like him, not necessarily him, but a guy who's younger, turning heads on a more talented team, possibly they're just trying to pick up and in favor of cutting a guy like Chris Harper or Gabe Marks?
I think it's possible. I mean, some of these lower-end guys, listen, the great thing now about the preseason is you don't have to get down until 90 until your very last cut. You don't have to cut to 75 anymore. So it gives you the opportunity to evaluate those roster bubble guys for that 4th preseason game, which I think is awesome. So you could put in a waiver claim for a guy like that if you feel like one of these guys like Gabe Marks isn't up to snuff. But if you're speaking specifically about like a guy like Lucien, I watched all the Patriots preseason games the past couple of years. He never jumped off a tape of me at all. So I would not.
The report was that he's much better than he was last year. He's been turning heads. Hey, we're yet to see.
Sounds like every Jets player ever during the offseason to me.
Okay, well my point is during the next 4 weeks we will see a few preseason guys that'll jump off for other teams, and I think the Jets will definitely be one of those teams that are scouting some of those younger guys that could get cut. That teams are trying to try to squeeze on their practice squad, see if they can try to get them. I think the Jets will be watching that waiver wire for young guys like that. Kyle Smith, let's keep talking. I believe you were an offensive lineman for high school, right?
Yeah, I played left tackle in high school.
All right, well, you played left tackle. Let's talk about this offensive line.
Do you have short arms?
I actually think my arms are pretty long, to be honest.
Yeah,
so your theory,
you got that
your
Kevin.
theory isn't correct.
Not compared to an NFL offensive tackle, but if you compare me to the average man, I think I got pretty good long arms. To be honest.
All right.
Sorry.
It's not all. And the joke's there. We won't make it. Kyle Smith. But let's talk about the offensive line of the New York Jets.
Oh, my God.
Let's talk about the offensive line of the New York Jets. Been struggling so far. You can look at maybe the Jets' defensive line's playing better. You do have 3 guys who have been Pro Bowlers on the line. But you look at that offensive line, they've been struggling. You're probably, for the majority of the season, maybe the entire season, going to have a young guy back there. Nothing worse than for a young guy to have, 3 defensive linemen in his face within 2 seconds. I mean, you think of that Bryce Petty game against the Dolphins at home, and he was getting hit with every second. That's one of Kyle's big arguments about why the Jets should give Petty a chance. This offensive line, how worried are you for them? Do you think this could just be because the defensive line's playing well in practice? Do you think it's one of those things that will work itself out? I mean, what would your starting 5 look like at the offensive line? Just your overall, synopsis of the Jets' offensive line heading into 2017.
I wouldn't be too concerned yet, Mr. Blessington, and the reason being is the way that the current CBA is, these offensive linemen, they don't have any time to gel. The only way that you really get any, listen, when you're a wide receiver, you get good practice reps from running against air because you're running your route to your fullest extent. But if you're an offensive lineman, your duty is to hit and smash the guy in front of you. And you can't do that unless it's a padded practice. So those spring practices are basically meaningless for offensive linemen. So it takes time before offensive lines to gel, especially in modern day with the current CBA. So the defense is always ahead, especially the defensive line. They're always ahead of the offensive line at this point in time in the year. Not to mention, the Jets do have one of the best defensive lines in the entire league, so it's natural that they're going to be struggling at this point of the year. I'm not that concerned. I like our guards. Love Carpenter. Winter's pretty good. I don't love him, but I think he's a pretty good offensive lineman. Wesley Johnson impressed a little bit last year, but let's not make it like he's the second coming, like he's going to be as good as Mangold was a couple years ago. Not the case at all. Tackles is where I'm a little concerned. As I said, I called in last week and expressed my concerns with Beachum. I think I would play Beachum on the left, but I'm not confident at that at all. And as far as the right tackle goes, it would not be Quali for sure, because Quali has shown me nothing. That dude gets bull rushed like no other. He's just, to me, I just see him, I see a big goofball. I see, basically a cooler Breno Giacomini, if you will. He's just
cooler. Hey, whoa! Let's not disregard
Breno's a jerk. Breno's a jerk, man. He's always hitting people after the whistle and stuff. He's a fake tough guy.
I saw him after the Jets-Pats game as I was getting everybody's autographs, and I just saw him. He looked at me, and I was just like, nah, and I just turned away.
You'll be gone in a year.
You'll be gone.
To be fair, I did go and find Maccagnan after I said nah to Breno Giacomini, so it was worth it.
And I would put it either Shell or Ajalana would be my right tackle. Now, let me just say some observations about Shell last year. Pro Football Focus sent out some tweets that were really hyping him up. But to be honest, I didn't see too much of him. I know he had a really high pass block grade, but it's not like, he was singled up against Cameron Wake all the time. He was getting a lot of chip blocks from the running backs to help him with Wake. And Wake is a freak of nature, so you're going to need to help him out anyway. But one thing about Shell is his footwork. He doesn't have a great base when he's setting. He gets his feet too close to one another. And if you're trying to pass block, if you're trying to hold somebody off and your feet are too close to one another, you're going to get you don't have any power. So you need to have a good base, and you need a good footwork to have a good base, and I don't see that with Shell. He is strong, though. I'll say, once he gets his mitts on somebody, he can push them back. And there is one GIF that Glenn Naughton sent out to me, and I'll tweet it out to you guys, or I'll retweet it, where Shell threw back Cameron Wake. He's got a lot of power. He is a big dude. And footwork is something that you can teach. So you see those raw skills that Maccagnan liked in Shell. So to me, that's promising. Now, Ajalana was pretty serviceable at right tackle. And as far as the mental game goes, he's ahead of Shell at this point in time. But Ajalana was terrible when he was moved to the left side. So I would not put him there at all. I also wouldn't put Shell there at all. So right tackle is going to be a competition between those two, and hopefully at least by mid to end season, it's Shell's position to take.
Yeah, the Jets have been playing a lot of, you're right. Pro Football Focus has been hyping up, Brandon Shell since, I believe, January or something, ever since his last 3 games he played, and he did perform, well analytically. You definitely can make the argument, though, that run blocking, and he has some other. I did see that base, and I'm not even offensive lineman, but I did notice. I mean, he looks like he's pretty close to falling over at times. I do think that I like the guards, as you said. I think Johnson. I mean, I think you were actually the guy who said that. I might be wrong. That you don't need an amazing center in today's NFL. I might be wrong. That you can kind of get away with an average guy in today's NFL with the medium, quick passing. So I might be wrong that was you, but I believe. I think
it depends. It depends on the scheme you're running too. Like for example, in a zone.
Morton scheme. What about for Morton?
Well, he's not running a zone-based running scheme, so the center's less valuable. I would say it's definitely less valuable than tackles for sure, and I definitely think it's less valuable than guards. And look at contracts. NFL contracts always tell you what positions are more valuable. The reality is that guards get paid more than centers. And the thing about centers, and here's my argument. What I was saying, Ben, is, centers don't take on. They don't have to single block people in pass protection very often. Oftentimes, it's always the center that's, working a double team, whether it be in run blocking or pass blocking. So, if you have a center that's not really good, you can kind of cover up that wart by having a good guard that can help him out in pass protection or whatever, that can help chip guys for him, which the Jets do have. So even though Wesley Johnson isn't that great from a talent perspective, he's working alongside two guards that are going to help cover up his deficiencies.
Yeah, and my point about him is I just don't think he's going to negatively affect the team this season. Now let's get out to the tackles for a bit, and then we'll switch topics, and then we'll ask you about Saturday, and we'll let you get going on with your day. The tackle position, as you mentioned, Kelvin Beachum. What are your main concerns about him? I know we talked about his short arms was one of your main concerns, and my argument back to you was, you look at a guy who has some of the longest arms in the NFL. Ryan Clady was their offensive tackle last year, and that clearly didn't help. I also, look, again, kind of like with players are going to come on the show and trash Bulls. He came on our show and said he feels 100%. And it sounded pretty genuine. He says he's moving around well, and he's didn't just say that to us. If he can go back to what he was in 2014, 2015, don't you think that would be an upgrade over what the Jets had last year in Ryan Clady?
He can certainly be an upgrade over what Ryan Clady was last year. Clady was just awful last year. That dude is done. And this is a case in point of injuries just catching up with somebody. And, there are some positions where, like, when you tear your ACL, it's not as big of a comeback as it is. But there's something about, like, your plant and your kick leg. I don't know of too many guys that, like, tear their ACL as, like, an offensive lineman and, really rebound from that and become back to the form that they once had. And that's kind of my argument with Beachum is I can't think of too many examples, and he has had the torn ACL. He was not good last year, despite the fact that Fahey's going to say, well, Bortles, hold on to the ball long. He still wasn't good, period. And, when you factor in the measurables and stuff, too, that is concerning. The Jags were not a good team, did not have a good offensive line, yet they elected not to re-sign this guy. So I think it is a cause for concern. Could he be better than Clady? I'm expecting him to be better than Clady because you can't really get much worse.
just quality out there at left tackle. You might hit a little lower before. That might be a little worse. All right, switching gears here. Let's talk a little bit about this preseason, and I guess training camp as a whole. Who are some guys you're excited to watch for the rest of training camp preseason? You saw some guys when you were out there, and you've heard the training camp reports. A few guys, offensive, defensive guys that you're looking forward to seeing not only in these preseason games, but for the rest of training camp. Just some under the radar bubble guys that you're watching.
Oh, under the radar guys. Okay,
yeah.
So under the radar guys, I wouldn't consider Burris under the radar. I'm extremely excited to see him. Under the radar guys that I'm excited to see. Would you consider? Listen, everybody loves Donahue because he's Kevin Green's guy and he's a hard worker. 5th round draft pick. I think you can consider him to be kind of under the radar. We didn't have a lot of tape of him to watch coming out of college, so he's a guy that I want to watch for sure because we just don't know too much about him yet. So he's one guy for sure. Let's see. I would like to see more Romar Morris in actual games because the practice I went to, he was good, man. You're talking about, and this is the same thing I've actually, and here's Elijah McGuire, too. Let's talk some running backs. I love Bilal Powell. I was raving about him with some of the video clips that I couldn't stop gifting him enough. He was so good late last season. But, you're looking at two guys that, might not be a tremendous drop-off from him. McGuire, you look at McGuire in practice, the dude is a natural receiver. He catches the ball, tucks it, seamless run after the catch. Sometimes receivers after they catch the ball, they don't know how to run after the catch. It's like a not smooth transition. The dude's a natural at it, but he also did show some power. One of the knocks on McGuire coming out was, he can't break tackles. And there was all these like analytic stats, like he only broke 5 tackles in his most recent college season. I'll tell you what, in practice, full padded practice, they're bringing running backs to the ground. I saw him break some tackles, and I saw him run up between the tackles a couple times too.
Let's hope that's just not on the Jets' poor tackling.
And that could be the case. That's why I'm excited to see him in the preseason. Would you consider someone like Hansen, 4th-round draft pick? Would you consider him under the radar, or is he shit in the spotlight?
No, I
you're forgetting the biggest one.
All these guys under the radar.
I'm excited to see Hansen because, listen, I liked what I saw on tape of him when I put it on. It's not every day that you get to see a white boy high pointing the football like that, like we saw in college. So that was cool to me. But then when Fahey's saying Decker 2.0, no. But then when I go
I'm
to
doing
practice,
that just to piss you off at this point, by the way.
Of course.
Because I know how much you hate it.
But when I go to practice, oh man, like he is so far from where he needs to be. So, I want to see what can be done from him. Let's see, other under the radar guys.
Come on, you're missing a guest of the show.
You talk about ASJ? What are you talking about?
You
what
don't
guest
listen
of
to
the
the show. You don't listen to the show. I'm hurt, Kyle.
Are you talking about Derek Jones? Oh yeah.
Yeah. Come on.
I mean, I guess I'm excited to see him too. I don't know anything about him. There's no draft breakdown videos of him as far as I understand. So I really couldn't get any game film to even watch on the guy. So yes, you know what, Fahey? You're right. I am excited to watch him. You spend a draft pick on a guy, supposedly he's a long guy, fits in a Bowles kind of mantra of what he wants in a corner, long press coverage guy. Yeah, I want to see what he can do because I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, I really want to see him and, his further development as a corner because as we've said numerous times, on the show, he was a wide receiver primarily in college and he only switched to corner for a limited amount of time in his career, at Ole Miss when, there weren't any escorts or scandals or whatever. But,
right. And sorry, Kyle Fahey, to cut you off. We're down to 3 minutes now for Kyle Smith. We got to get him out on time. Okay, again, Kyle Smith. I guess one prediction, or I guess you can go a few predictions or one, just depending what you're feeling. A prediction for the end of training camp, whether that's a surprise cut, a surprise guy that makes it, who's starting at this position or this position. Just a few predictions on what you think this team will look like week 1.
Surprise cut. Surprise cut. I wouldn't be shocked if Lorenzo Malden was cut.
Yep, that's exactly who I thought.
I would not be shocked if he's cut. Who knows what's happening with the legal situation? I don't know if that's been solved yet, but Malden hasn't been good. And, I mean, it's one thing after the other. His playing time decreased as the season went on. And to me, he's a guy that, like, when he's playing bad, and I know he's been through a lot in his life, but he didn't show that type of adversity on the field. Look at the Buffalo game week 2. When he was messing up some assignments, he's going over to the sideline and slamming his helmet down and putting his head down. I don't want to see that from a player. I want to see a player keep his head up, and, he let his emotions get the best of him at times. Don't be shocked if he gets cut. Let's see. Another surprise cut. Thing is, guys, a lot of guys that we're expecting to make the roster, it's not like they have, like, a bunch of, we're down to the bare bones here. So, like, it's like I don't think there was too many, like, good guys or veterans.
McClendon, Forte.
I can see McClendon getting cut. I mean, they brought in Still, and, Still really isn't a guy who's going to be a nose tackle. So, but, again, Still is just another defensive lineman. And you only have so many – and, listen, Leonard Williams can play nose. He played it so many different times last year. So, really, like, if Leonard is so good at playing that position – and then because you want to keep Sheldon at the 3 and Mo at the 5, you really don't need McClendon there. So what's the point of having him? So I could see that for sure. And then Still can be one of the backups to one of those other guys in case they get hurt or they need a breather.
Or Deion Simon, Lawrence Thomas, guys like that.
Exactly. Deion Simon, like, he wasn't. Don't believe into those Jets fans. Oh, Deion Simon is not that much of a downgrade from Snacks. No, he's a huge downgrade from Snacks. But Deion Simon is serviceable. He was a nice draft pick when we got him in the 7th round. But don't overbuy the hype. But yeah, honestly, I don't see McClendon as being necessary to this team. And if it wasn't for that Week 1 game against the Bengals where he tore up, in retrospect, a very bad center and a very bad offensive line, would we even need him on this? Like, would Jets fan even know who he was? That game, kind of like first game of the year, it kind of really set
we were all like
expectations.
We were snack too. Like it was all that sort of, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think he had like 2 sacks. He was stuffing guys in the backfield. All right,
but
Kyle
like,
Smith.
when else did he like?
Yeah,
pop
no.
up? Can you remember him making
really
a single other play in any other game? I can't.
No, not at all. Kyle Smith this weekend, first Jets game of the year, first Jets preseason game of the year. Last question for you: what are you looking forward to seeing? Expectations, predictions again.
Game of the year.
So for the first preseason game, what are my expectations?
Predictions, yeah, just kind of stuff like that. What are you looking forward to seeing? Just stuff like that.
I'm definitely looking forward to watching the quarterback play. One thing's for sure is McCown probably will not get a lot of reps in that game. You'll see a lot of Hackenberg and Petty, and let's be honest, this is the best time to evaluate them because what did I keep saying? We got to evaluate Hack when he's actually able to get hit and pressures around him. Listen, there's a big difference from a live padded practice where a quarterback's wearing a red jersey versus a preseason game when people can actually bring him to the ground. So I'm going to watch the quarterbacks with a close eye for sure. I'm excited to see that.
Who do you think will play the best?
What'd you say?
Who do you think will play the best?
It'll probably be. Listen, McCown's probably going to start the game, and he's probably going to have the best of the best players, the best line in, the best running backs in. So it's going to be easier for him to play the best. Plus, at this point in time, he's probably more ahead on the playbook than the other guys. But listen, I'm with you in terms of I think Hackenberg is better than Petty. Sorry, Fahey, I do, but I don't think Hackenberg's good. I don't want to keep saying that, but in terms of, I'm really excited to see the secondary because the secondary was so bad last year, and Jamal Adams got hurt the one practice I went to, so I really didn't get to see him chirping it up on the sideline and stuff. I want to see how he's communicating with people because that means a lot in terms of communicating with the defense, everybody being on the same page. Listen, look at that Colts game last year. How many blown assignments were there? Oh. You're talking Dwayne Allen just running wide open in the end zone.
Yep.
That doesn't happen if you have proper communication. It just doesn't happen. So hopefully Adams in his communication, he can shore up things like that so we don't see those types of problems. But I also want to see what he can do from the physical standpoint. I'm excited to see Mo Claiborne. I think Mo Claiborne is a very good fit for Todd Bowles' scheme. And Justin Burris, man, the dude should have played more last year. If he played more early, how much better could he have been late last season? So I want to see more from that guy too.
All right. Well, yeah, all positive things to look forward to. Kyle Smith, thank you so much for joining us. You are always welcome to co-host this show. Fantastic takes and very well spoken. Where can our listeners follow you if they're not already following you?
Well, pretty much the only place to do that is on Twitter at AFC East Bros.
Are you going to change that at?
I've been thinking about it, man. But the thing is I can't do you and do Ben W. Blessington or Ben W. Blessington. I think is what your new handle is.
Mine.
You used to have the 7. The thing is, for me, my name is so common, Kyle Smith, that I would have to make it like Kyle Smith and some number or whatever. So I'm trying to figure out if there's a creative
Kyle Smith NFL.
Yeah.
Copy Kyle Fahey.
No, I don't know.
It's I'm like an official member of NFL Media, so I mean.
Oh, stop it!
I am. I seriously am.
I don't know, but I will say this to your listeners: I'll be doing extensive film breakdowns. I'll be sending out a lot of GIFs or video clips, if you will, on Twitter, putting them into Twitter moments for every single Jets game this year. And because I'm not watching the other AFC East games, I should get them out in a more timely fashion. So, yeah, if you want to interact with me, do it on Twitter, and I'll make sure to put a lot of Jet stuff on there. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Hey, well, thank you for coming on. And isn't Travis
What about Travis Wingfield?
No, he's hold on, Kyle Fahey. Isn't Travis Wingfield like Travis Wingfield NFL, something like that? I don't know, Kyle. I could see Kyle Smith NFL. It kind of flows off the tongue.
Yeah, but I'm not doing the whole NFL or whatever. Like Wingfield, he's got his whole quarterback.
What else do you tweet about?
I just tweet about the Jets, though. I don't tweet
about Kyle Smith Jets.
I don't tweet about the Arizona Cardinals or the Houston Texans.
All right, Kyle Smith Jets. There you go. Kyle Smith Jets. He's
not an official member of the Jets.
Do I want to be associated with such a bad team?
Oh, my God.
Just be.
You're like a schoolgirl trying to figure out her caption on an Instagram post right there, Kyle Smith. I don't know.
Only you would make that reference, Ben. Kyle,
nice.
Will I be getting an invite, or is it going to be like I'm just going to be there and Gary's going to want to kill me?
To the wedding?
Yeah.
Oh, Gary's definitely going to have a...
Wait, what about this?
Gary would want you there. Gary would want you there.
How about we don't tell Gary that Kyle is coming?
I don't want to end up in a body bag.
No, that's not going to happen. No way. I don't want to.
Drew is inviting me to his reception whenever that happens, whenever he grows the conconas to pop the question to Larissa. Gary, I don't know. I don't know if
Gary likes you, Faye. He likes you, but he likes to put you in your place too. But anyway, I got to go, guys.
All right. Kyle Smith, thank you so much for joining us. Again, everybody go follow him at AFC East Bros. Terrific stuff as always. We'll hopefully talk to you again. Let's do this again sometime.
Yeah, we can do it again. I'm going on vacation next week, so maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We'll see. All right, guys, take care.
Looking forward to it. See you.
Okay. All right. Guess we're doing a 3-hour show tonight.
Well, no, because we started at 5:15, so we're only at an hour and 50. We'll bring on our last 2 callers of the night, and we'll probably take us 2 hours, 30 minutes, something like that. Yeah, really quickly. You notice how I didn't get that invite, though. I don't know. I think Gary and Smith and I got some beef.
No, Gary, I didn't think Gary liked me, but I guess that's different. I know for a fact Gary hated you.
Oh, it's good to hear.
You're just not popular with the Smith brothers, are you?
Hey,
I found out there's another brother.
Well, why was he not a part of AFC's Pros? I
guess he's just like a different breed of Smith. It's kind of like the Manning brothers, except
Oh yeah. So Kyle Smith's Peyton, then Gary's Eli, and then there's good. Why can't I think of his name? No. Archie's the dad.
Archie's the dad.
God, this is so. Go look it up. I know the name. It'll hit me in a second. Wide receiver got hurt. All right, let's go ahead and get our callers. Once you get me that name, what is it? Come on. It starts with a W.
Cooper.
Oh, wow, not even close. Cooper. All right, Cooper Manning. All right, let's get to. We have 2 callers in line. We're going to start with Jaydon.
It's Mans.
All right, Jaydon, how you doing, man?
Tonight?
Hey, we're good.
Doing good,
how
bro.
about yourself?
I'm doing excellent right now.
Oh, well,
Eat the cereal still.
Good to hear. Jaydon, let's talk a little bit about this team. I guess we'll start with Quincy Enunwa. That's kind of how we've talked with all our callers. We'll branch off into some other subjects. But your initial reaction to the Quincy Enunwa injury, I mean, look, who do you think is going to be able to step up and replace him?
Well, I must first say, my first initial reaction, I thought it was a prank, a joke, and I definitely didn't. I was pissed when it was confirmed, but I mean, it's just gonna be a good opportunity for these young guys to come out and do what they can, show their talent.
Yeah, I mean, I think we get to evaluate guys we haven't had too much of an opportunity to evaluate. I mean, Quincy was one of those guys because it wasn't like Quincy was a proven commodity. He was just the most proven out of all of them. Yeah, I mean, I was looking for him to prove himself on a different level. All these other guys got to prove himself on a much lower level. Can they be a competent NFL receiver? Let's talk a little bit about the defensive line. We haven't talked about them too much. Look, Sheldon Richardson playing well. It's a contract year for him. Leonard Williams continuing to ascend. Mahal Wilkerson back from a broken leg in 2015 and kind of seems like he's playing towards 100%. What are your expectations for this defensive line this year? Are you expecting, one, do you think Sheldon will be on the team by week 17? 2, what type of production can you see? How many sacks, could this team put together? Just overall production for the defensive line. Do you think they'll rebound from a pretty poor 2016 season?
I do think they'll rebound, and I definitely don't know if Sheldon will be on the roster just because of his past history in the law. But, you definitely got to expect big things from the D-line. But the D-end spot specifically, we have three Pro Bowlers, so you really got to think that they're going to produce.
Yeah, absolutely. I think.
But what I was the Jets, and you never know.
Yeah, I think that's the statement of the decade right there, or at least for my lifetime. And what I was alluding to earlier, just the complete mismanagement by Todd Bowles with the talent there. Do you think a team mismanages the talent again, like with Sheldon Richardson, if he does play at outside linebacker and he stunts the development of, say, Jordan Jenkins but gives Lorenzo Malden a nod for some reason, do you think Todd Bowles deserves to get fired then?
No, I definitely think that he should stick around for a year and then play that out next year.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Let's talk about the preseason game. You know, we are, let's just say, 4 days away. I'm stupid. That's probably completely wrong math. What are you looking forward to most?
I don't know if there's really much to look forward to, but definitely looking forward to see like the defense go out there. You know, that's where we obviously have the most talent. So go see out there what the starters will do, then see what our depth will do.
Yeah, I can tell you personally, I'm looking forward to the quarterbacks and the running backs. I want to see how they play. I don't want to say I'm comfortable with everybody else, but at least I expect more, or I know what I'm getting out of everybody else, at least in my opinion.
But I'm at least excited about the DNs and the defense. The offense, it looks like it's gonna be a little sad, and I'm not gonna want to watch them for a while.
Yeah, let's talk about the quarterbacks. Who do you think is going to come out and perform against Tennessee?
I'm saying Bryce Petty. Like, I'm sticking with Bryce Petty, and you saw him perform nice last year. Just never really got the opportunity to do much, with his injury in his shoulder. But he can definitely perform. There's some haters, but hopefully I see past the haters, and I see his potential and what he can do.
Yeah, absolutely, and I feel the same way. Let's talk about the running backs a little bit. We seem to have a cluster of guys back there who are either old, talented, or not used properly. Let's start with the old Matt Forte. What are you expecting from him? Do you think there's a chance he plays, or do you think the Jets are just going to let him, rest?
Last year he had this, hamstring issue, and he played pretty much. We can give him the ball 30 times a game, so it's definitely interesting to see if he'll be around. But I'm looking forward to see Bilal Powell. You already know that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the guys behind them, Elijah McGuire, possible friend of the program, maybe, possibly, we're hoping. Okay. And then behind him, Ramon Morris, two guys who have shown a lot, in practice, but in the words of Allen Iverson, we're talking about practice. So do you think they're going to show anything this preseason game?
I know, not a little, but, obviously Elijah McGuire in the draft, but Ramon Morris, I'm not too familiar with. I definitely have to start reading up or watching some videos on him.
Yeah, I think what we could say about him right now, obviously, like you said, there isn't really a lot. Basically in the NFL, there's almost nothing. I think we can expect a good pass-catching running back. As Kyle Smith alluded to earlier in the show, he looked crisp, as a receiver, which is rare in the NFL. We always see it from a couple guys like, Bilal Powell, who we have, luckily, and, Duke Johnson, David Johnson, guys like that. So I'm expecting definitely a lot of targets for him, which this is what I expect from the Jets, in total this year, with Quincy going down, obviously Decker, Marshall gone. I'm expecting the tight ends and running backs to get, more of the bulk this year. Just be those dump-offs to the young quarterback, which will really help him in the long run, whoever it ends up being. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that, but I would like to ask both of you this one question. Do you see us getting Le'Veon Bell next year?
I was actually talking about this today with my dad, looking at the Devontae Freeman contract. I think Le'Veon Bell's a much better running back than Devontae Freeman. I know Devontae Freeman's definitely a good running back, but you look at the deal that Devontae Freeman got, it was an extensive one, and I know the Jets have cap room next year, but I would be more. This is the scenario that I would love to happen. I'm wrong about one of the quarterbacks. One of them's good, but we still end up getting like a top 10 pick. I'd probably say like 7 just because of the talent we have. And then we draft Saquon Barkley. And I think he would be a top 10 running back entering the league. And, he might have a bad season this year, and that might change. But as of right now, he's probably my number 1 overall talent in next year's draft. So, if we can't land him, we'll just see what we have in Bilal Powell first. Ben, your thoughts?
Ben's lost.
Yeah, I think Ben died.
I know.
Gone.
I'm here. Sorry, I was on mute.
Go ahead. Give it.
Don't do
Go ahead.
About Le'Veon Bell. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Look, I mean, I personally think the Jets should stay away from big name free agent signings. I mean, he is a Jets fan, or at least he was when the Jets were good. I think could the Jets go out and make a big name free agent signing like him? Possibly. I don't think the Steelers will let him get away, but yes, could I see the Jets?
Their situation seems pretty.
No. There are situations where he gets away. I just don't think they will let one of them happen. I just think that he's one of those guys that they'll try to keep around. But for the Jets, I mean, it's hard to invest a lot of money in the running backs. I mean, I think he's a very, very good one. And if you're going to invest in a free agent running back, he would probably be the guy who would do it. If you can get him at the right price for sure. But he's probably going to go, if he has another great season, he's going to go into this offseason saying, I want the biggest contract in NFL history. Like, that's just the mindset he's
No, he wants the biggest contract possible. But I don't think that'd be up to maybe some quarterbacks are going to get higher than him. But he's going to want a $100 million plus deal. And I just would it be smart for the Jets? Would it be smart for the Jets to do it? It depends what type of situation they're in. If they have enough cap space and they draft a quarterback and Powell and the running backs don't really look great, maybe they try to bring in Le'Veon Bell. You have your own quarterback, Le'Veon Bell, some young, nice receivers. But I mean, you have to remember the Jets have a lot of cap space. We shouldn't try to burn it all on one guy. Maybe you should try to go after those younger role player guys.
Well, Le'Veon Bell is known for burning paper. I mean,
okay, more than one way. I like it, Kyle. Yeah. But it's just I personally, it depends how the Jet season plays out. But if I had to make my gut call right now, I don't think it'll happen, and I don't think I would do it. But again, there are situations where I could be for it. Now, Jaydon, I want to keep talking to you. Let's keep it going with this team. Let's talk about the defense a bit with the secondary. Kyle Smith was talking about the corner position. I mean, obviously, we haven't heard too much from them. Morris Claiborne has looked good. And it sounds like Screen is still playing his kind of slot role. Do you have a preference between Justin Burris and Darryl Robertson, who you think is better? Right now at the Jets' depth chart, Roberts is listed ahead of Burris. I mean, obviously, Bull said it's meaningless. I mean, there are still some things that are pretty meaningless on that was just a thing they made for the website. But, do you think that Roberts might be the guy that steps up as the Jets, outside corner opposite Claiborne? Because a lot of Jets fans have been suggesting it's Burris.
Yeah, I definitely like Burris just because he fits Coach Bull's scheme, long corners, tall corners. So I think it kind of fits, and it's kind of smart to go ahead and roll with Burris.
Yeah. No.
Okay. I don't know who dropped, but I was just like dead.
No, I was still here. Yeah, no, I mean, look, Kyle, I want to get your take on this. I don't have to keep calling you Kyle Fahey. Kyle, I want to get your take on this. I mean, the corner position, Roberts is listed ahead of Burris on the depth chart. Do you think that holds any weight to it? I mean, do you think he's ahead of him? What are your thoughts? We talked about who would make the better slot corner. I think we said Burris.
Yes, Burris.
I think we said
Burris
on
was
the inside.
Better slot because
I'm pretty
sure.
Yeah, I think we said that. Well, yeah, I think so. I think that was the case. But what are your thoughts on Burris versus Roberts?
I'd probably take Roberts. I just think he's the better cover corner. I think he's coached better. I mean, he had some exposure with Bill Belichick, greatest of all time. I mean, he did something right. And it's rare that Bill Belichick compliments somebody, and it seems that it's always players that he likes to pick up. Good examples of that are Sean Ellis, David Harris. He complimented them in the past. He's complimented Darryl Roberts a couple times now, at least publicly. So I just think he's a better coached player, or, Todd Bowles ruined him. That's also a possibility. And I think he's just a better talent as of right now. His floor is higher than what Justin Burris' floor is right now. So, this will play out over, training camp. But my early predictions right now are Darryl Roberts as the number 2, Justin Burris as the slot, and go and get me Tremaine Brock, and we will have a different conversation.
As long as they're both on the field.
Yeah, and Jaydon, really quickly, two more questions for you. Do you have a guy that you think will be a surprise starter for this team in 2017? A guy, not necessarily, it doesn't have to be the quarterback position, could be somewhere else. Maybe you have a guy like, I don't think this will happen, but Romar Morris starting at running back, a guy like Chris Harper starting at wide receiver opposite Robbie Anderson, maybe a guy at right tackle, whatever it is. Do you have a surprise starter for Week 1, or do you think it'll pretty much be what everybody thinks will happen?
I think Dylan Donahue might, surprise people, and maybe like around week 10 he'll start a game and start starting.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Ben.
Well, I think Donahue is probably ahead of Malden at this point. He's gotten a lot of more first-team reps. I think he's a guy that I personally think he'll be solid. I mean, time will tell if he's a guy who can be an every-down linebacker, but for sure I think he'll be a solid situational pass rusher. And then, Jaydon, last question for you. What are you looking forward to seeing this Saturday when the Jets take on the Titans?
I'm excited to see, the secondary and Jamal Adams and Marcus May go ahead and see what they can potentially be.
All right, Jaydon, thank you so much for calling in. Really quickly, give out your Twitter so our listeners can give you a follow.
You can go ahead and follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Jaydon, and go ahead and message me and DM me. I love to talk some Jets.
All right, Jaydon, thank you so much for calling in, man. Hope to hear from you next week. We'll be talking about some actual tangible football next week.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks, man. All right, that was Jaydon. I guess we'll just keep moving ahead with the phone lines here. Last caller of the night. This is
mystery caller.
A mystery.
I don't know who this is.
Yeah, 917. You are on the line. How you doing? 917.
And they're dead.
And they have died.
Wow.
917.
917. I will say your whole phone number.
Don't say the whole number. All right.
Rip. That's a shame.
There?
I don't know who it is. He or she is not in our system. I could not identify it on any app that I had, and it's from the New York area, so I don't think it's like a troll. My guess is a former producer, though. That would be my guess. That would just be my guess.
917.
Producer still wanted, by the way.
All right, last call for 917, and I think they are done.
Dunzo.
All right.
They're not a big baller. That's why.
All right, well, I guess they're not a big baller, as Kyle said. Yeah. That was pretty good. That was pretty good time-wise. We're at 107, so we have a little bit of time to talk last few minutes of the show, and then we'll wrap it up. Or I guess that's 2, so that's never mind.
Yeah,
207. It's terrible math. All right, well, let's talk a little bit here, Kyle. Just what are you looking forward to seeing this weekend? We haven't really talked about that. I mean, we kind of give our this is our first episode of 2017 where we're actually going to be talking about some football. So I guess we'll give a little bit preview for this. Kyle, I'll give you the reins. Give our listeners a preview for what are they going to see on Saturday. Not just predictions, but set it up, then give some predictions, your expectations. What are you looking forward to seeing? And overall, just a overarching preview. Kyle Smith or Kyle Fahey, you have the mic.
Wow. He was on here for like an hour, and you're already mixing up our names, Ben. I'm kind of offended. I'm a snowflake millennial. What I'm looking forward to most is good quarterback play. Marcus Mariota, he's getting the start. I'm excited to see some good quarterbacks out there for the first time in a long time. Second, I'm excited to see, Marcus May. I'm pretty sure he's going to play. Don't know if Jamal Adams is going to play. I don't know about his ankle. I think he's been in practice the past couple of days, so I think that's just up to the coaches, how they feel about his development, how they feel he's, progressing, if he really needs that game or he can wait. There's always a week 3 of the preseason when it, kind of matters, I guess, for making the team. Well, obviously he's going to make the team, but you guys know what I mean. Predictions for the game. I'm going to be honest. I don't know a lot about the Titans roster off the top of my head. I can probably name most of their starters. I probably can't name more than 5 of their backups. But I can certainly name the Jets. As far as I know, I think the Jets will win this preseason game. I think it will be one of the few wins for these young guys all year, so I think they should really enjoy it, go and put their hearts out, their bodies on the line, because, you got an extended time period. You have more time to make yourself known. You have more practices. You have one more game than last year. You know, it's a golden opportunity, but you still need to go out there and play like it's your last game. So I'm really looking forward to all those young guys grinding, improving themselves. Guys like Derek Jones, friends of the program, not necessarily a lock on the roster. You know, hopefully he at least stays on the practice squad, but definitely a guy we're looking for on special teams. And a guy I'm really excited about is, you know, just seeing if Mo plays. I just want to see if he's out there and he can get back to, you know, Mo knows. You know, I want to start making that T-shirt in the next couple of weeks. I really want Mo to get out there and be Mo. I miss Mo, and, you know, the money we're paying him. I think he's got to go out and deliver. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Those are my expectations. Expectations. Excuse me. Too much pest control in my life. Inspections. And then, you know, really looking forward to quarterback play on both sides.
Yeah, I think this is, again, it's preseason football. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets won. It doesn't mean the Jets are going to be an amazing team this year.
Remember when we went 3-1 in the preseason? Remember that?
Sure, yeah, I think it was 2014.
Yeah, and then what happened that year?
Because we beat the Colts and whatever. Yeah, I mean, look, especially the first one, and more of this goes to the fourth one, but the first one, you know, you're going to see a few series as the starters. I will say this: I do think the Jets don't have many high-priced, you know, big-name guys. I think Enunwa would have been one of those guys that would have, you know, sat out. You'll see these starters in for a while. I think Hackenberg will get first-team reps as well. I think McCown will probably get, you know, 5 series, or maybe not 5, 3 series or so, and then Hackenberg will get 1 or 2 with the starters. I expect Hackenberg to play the majority of the game. I would say that, you know, he should get at least 2 quarters, and then Petty should get the 4th. So McCown should get, you know, pretty much the first quarter, most of it. Hackenberg should fill in all the way until, you know, maybe middle of the third, end of the third. That's when Petty should take over and just see what Petty can do. But I think it should be more reps for the young guys is better. But yes, Hackenberg will get a few series with the starters, at least just 1. My prediction, I also think this is a prediction for next year. I think Hackenberg will start our second preseason game. I think they'll do McCown first, Hackenberg second, and they'll make their prediction for the third. It probably looks like it'll be McCown just because it seems like that's what Bowles wants to do. As far as other predictions, I think Romar Morris will look good. I think you'll see one of these young wide receivers flashing, whether that's, you know, Frankie Hammond, you know, Chris Harper. I think you'll just see a young guy out there, Miles White, just a guy you haven't really heard that much, maybe Lucky Whitehead. Just a younger guy look at the wide receiver, might help, you know, calm some of the Jets' nerves. I think the offensive line might struggle. I think one of the tight ends will catch a touchdown pass. I think Hackenberg will look the best out of all the quarterbacks. He'll probably have a touchdown, but I'll see like 2 touchdowns and interceptions, something like that. You know, probably a lower completion percentage than McCown, but I still think he'll throw, you know, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, as I said, but maybe he's like 12 for 20 or, you know, 12 for 22, 1 interception, whatever it is. I think, as I said, I think Romar Morris will look good. Hack will look pretty good, pretty solid debut. We'll have, you know, some rough spots, some bad throws, some interceptions, or a interception.
Just enough for Twitter.
As far as the defensive side goes, geez, Kyle, you got to move that mic a little farther. You're holding it like...
That's where I always hold it.
Just sit at a desk.
Then you guys never hear me.
Put the mic down and turn around. Okay, whatever. Anyways, I think as far as defensive side of the football goes, look, I mean, you can't. I think a guy like Dylan Donahue will turn up. Okay, whatever. I think a guy like, you know, Dylan Donahue might look good. Beltray. I think you'll just see the defense overall will look probably good as a unit. Probably won't give up too many scores. Yeah, but I think this will be a solid game for the Jets. I predict the Jets will win. It probably won't mean much. I think some of their backups will look good. And I think Hackenberg will play pretty well, and it'll be a nice start to the 2017 season. All you can ask for. And then I think that'll mean he will get the start. I believe we play the Lions next. I might be mistaken there. Kyle, am I right? Who do we play second in preseason? I believe it's Detroit, right?
Titans, Giants, Eagles. Yeah, Detroit sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the Lions. Can you fact check that really quickly? So yeah, I think it'll be a nice start to the preseason. And then as far as Petty goes, I think Petty might have a touchdown as well. Might also look pretty solid. But again, McCown, higher completion percentage, but like lower, you know, less impressive plays, much lower ceiling. Hackenberg will have some bad, but a lot, you know, good. You know, a nice kind of sporadic. That's kind of how he's playing so far, and Petty will look, solid with the threes. I guess my prediction, as far as we'll break down the MVPs and all sorts of, we'll break down every positional group next week, and we might have a special guest lined up. But I guess that's going to do it for our episode. Kyle, do you have our second team?
Lions.
Okay. Yeah, so we do play Detroit. I think Hackenberg will start in Detroit. But we'll break down.
I have no idea if that's correct.
Oh my! He just didn't even look.
No.
Jets preseason. I asked you to look. They play the Lions. Okay, I was right. I think next week we're going to break down that. We'll break down this past game. We'll give you a preview for the Lions game. Have some callers as always. Again, you can call into the show 515-739-1285. Enter the PIN 261860 and use the pound or hash sign. You can call in and talk directly with us. You'll get as much time as you pretty much want. You can talk some Jets, and we might have a special guest on next week. We have a big one planned. We announced it last week. We didn't announce the name. It'll be probably our biggest one yet, but it could be next week. It could be the week after that, but it's coming. We also have some other guests planned for a few weeks once camp breaks, guys who are currently on the team. So we have some pretty big guests. I think we've had a guest on the show pretty much every week since Joe Caparoso or something. And I guess if you count Kyle Smith, we've continued the streak. But I think we're liking that. Kyle and I, and then we get a little, somebody else to start the show off, whether it's a player or a guest host or something like that. We kind of like this format. We like what we're doing, but we have big things coming. We do have another big announcement that'll come. Not something that's about an interview, but it'll come soon, probably in the next week or so. So we're really excited to bring you that. I think that the show will really benefit from this. I think it'll be a big move. So we're excited about those two things. And again, some other interviews that are coming down the line. All right, well, I guess we'll do our shameless plugins while as we end the show. As always, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at The Jet Take. We are pretty much on every single social media network like that. YouTube, we have some pump-up videos out. We'll probably have another, we already had a pump-up video. We'll probably have another, it won't be called a pump-up video, but it'll essentially be a hype-up Jets video, but it'll be called something else probably before the season starts. We also have all our episodes on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Basic social medias. Twitter is the best place to follow us. Again, we're at The Jet Take.
We're avid tweeters.
We do tweet quite a bit. If you want some Jet stuff in your timeline, as well as we retweet some big plays from practice, some big news, stuff like that, and we give our thoughts of our own. I think you can follow us. You can follow us there. I think we're a solid follow. As far as listening to the podcast, as I mentioned, YouTube. You can also go to iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play. We're all over the map there. Any other podcast you can think of. We also have a blog page, www.thejettake.libsyn.com. It has all our episodes as well as a few articles that we occasionally post on. Two other things, and then Kyle, I'll let you plug in your thing. For Jets tickets, we announced this at the beginning of the show, but for the cheapest Jets tickets around, Seat Giant has very, very, very cheap Jets tickets. And you can get them at an even discounted. They're already very cheap, and you can get a discount. So if you want to go to a preseason game this season or any other Jets game this year, use the promo code TheJetTake, and you will get a discount on an already very cheap ticket. It also shows you the 3D graph of where you're sitting, so you can choose the best seats. It's a very intuitive and great app, so definitely go use us there. And then you can also, if you want official Jets tickets, they're to 3 games this year. You can go to the Jets site and you can purchase either on the Dolphins game, the Falcons game, or the Jaguars game. Enter the promo code TheJetTake. It really helps out the podcast. A big thing for our podcast. Please use it. If you're going to any 3 of those games, they're official Jets tickets. They're very good tickets, and you can use our promo code. It really helps out the show.
And it helps you. So look at it this way. We're giving you $10 basically. Discounted, something around there. Can't give you the exact logistics. It depends on the ticket. It depends on the ticket.
Jesus, Kyle.
It depends on the ticket. It depends on the ticket you spend. It depends on the ticket you buy. If you're buying up in the nosebleeds, it might only be $10. You never know. But anyway, we're giving you money, and when we're shaking hands, you're giving us $10 at the same time. You're helping us out. Same goes with Seat Giant. Either way, just help us out. Any purchases help. It helps you, and you're helping us. Through your favorite podcast.
300 level tickets start at $60, and 200 level tickets start at $125. Seat Giant, you can get But CJ, you can get very cheap tickets. But you can get the home opener here, Falcons Jaguars game, official Jets tickets. They're very cheap, and officially sponsored by the Jets and great seats.
Yeah.
All right, Kyle. Before we log off and we give our final goodbyes, I want you have a little plug-in we'll do for our good friends over at Play Like a Jet podcast. Great podcast run over there. So give your little plug-in for them.
Yeah, so guys, don't forget to go check out Play Like a Jet. It's a great podcast. I'm a recent listener. I've always been cool with Scott. Started listening to his podcast. It's really informative, especially for a kid who wasn't swimming until 2000, basically.
Oh my God.
So it's really informative. It's really cool stories. So don't forget to check out them. Check them out. Play Like a Jet. Just basically look back at Jets history. And this week they have former Jets safety, Hofstra safety, Doug Shanahan, how he was trying to survive training camp, make the roster back in 2002, hear all about the Jets legends he knew, growing up, that eventually became mentors for him. And, it's kind of a wild story. So you guys can just find them on, basically anything, just search Play Like a Jet on iTunes. You can also find them on turnonthejets.com, just basically anywhere else. And it's out this Friday, so definitely don't miss it. It's going to be a great show.
All right, yeah, go make sure to buy your Jets ticket through that Seat Giant or the Jets official website, and you can use the promo code TheJetTake for cheap tickets. And yes, go check out the Play Like a Jet podcast, great podcast over there, and some big things coming, things coming, interview and some other stuff. So we'll announce that all this week or in the next coming weeks. We're excited to bring you some actual Jets football analysis next week, and for all the way until January. Hey, maybe February.
Yeah.
Super Bowl or bust.
Super Bowl or bust, baby.
Thank you so much to all our great listeners. We would be absolutely nothing without you guys. You guys have really helped the show grow. I mean, we've had some of our biggest episodes the past few weeks. So we're really excited to keep growing and keep staying in your subscriptions on iTunes. On iTunes, please write us a review. Really helps out the show. I think that's it for our plug.
Yeah.
We've had about 10 minutes of plug.
We're like Donald Trump's hair. We have way too many of them.
4 out of 10 joke there. I generally like your jokes. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the Le'Veon Bell one was the best I've ever done.
I like that one a lot. No, I generally like your Trump jokes, but it was a little weak. We'll see if Kyle can improve next week.
It was the plug.
The hair plugs. Yeah, I know. I got it. I was there.
Oh,
I know. All right. Anyways, we're gonna end the show there. Thank you so much for listening. Again, please keep listening. We're enjoying all the love, and please call in. Please talk to us yourself.
Yeah.
All right, that'll do it for us. Live next Wednesday, 8 o'clock Eastern. Tune in live or give us a call. Thank you so much for listening. We're going to leave you with the best chant in the National Football League. Whether they're good or bad, this is always going to be the best chant in the National Football League. Have a great week. Enjoy the game Saturday, and we'll talk to you guys next week.